for what it's worth, I think the pocket is an allegory for the aliens. It's real if you want it to be real because you can see it. It's there.
Shut up.
Oh, no way. Oh my God. No way. Oh my
Welcome, everybody, to episode 101, the season premiere of Season 5, the Serial Chillers podcast, here from the Super Network studio. I am here with Hella Greg. How goes it? Hella Greg.
I actually had something for this. I was peeing outside earlier, and I was like, when he asked me how I am, I'm going to say this, and then I forgot what it was, so I'm fine.
Perfect. A nature pee is always nice. Good to have you, Greg.
I do it to show solidarity with my dogs.
Perfect.
I want them to know we're on the same team.
I can appreciate that. So, you guys, it is the season premiere. I'm excited about that, but with it comes all of these wonderful things we need to talk about before we get to these guests here. So you guys just shut your mouth for a second while I tell you to follow the show on Facebook at Serial Chillers Podcast. The Facebook group is of the same name. So is the Instagram. Twitter is at Chillers Podcast. The email is serialchillerspodcast@gmail.com. Call or text the show at 1-805-666-2513. serialchillerspodcast.threadless.com for all your merchandise and things like that. Greg's all trying to get hey, pay attention.
No, dog.
Oh,
I was repping for the home team.
I thought you went like this.
Well, yeah, you fuckers, pay attention.
He said not to.
Serial Chillers Pod. No, I just said shut up.
Well, I heard don't pay attention.
Perfect. That's how Paul's life
We'll
works.
be over here.
serialchillerspodcast.threadless.com for merchandise. There's t-shirts, notebooks, mugs, all that good shit. serialchillerspodcast.com for stickers and updates. Rate and review the show on everything, please, unless you have something extra shitty to say. Patreon.com/serialchillerspodcast. If you'd like to give as little as $1 a month to help out the show, keep it going. Also, don't forget to check out the Super Simpsons Show and Death & Co. podcast on the Super Network. Super Simpsons out on Mondays, Death & Co. out on Wednesdays, Serial Chillers out on Fridays. So it's super simple schedule to follow, wouldn't you say?
Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Got it.
Get it. Also, thanks to He Who Seeks Vengeance for the new theme song. I know you guys heard it a couple times at the end of season 4. It is official going forward. They've got the badass new theme song. Thank you, Greg, for creating the original. It had an amazing run. We all loved it.
Wasn't me. It was Fred Get Stoned and the Barney Rumbles.
That's right. Fred Get Stoned and the Barney Rumbles. So thanks, Fred Get Stoned and the Barney Rumbles. We've got your jersey up in the rafters. And now He Who Seeks Vengeance has taken center court and is the new theme song.
Guys, look around.
They're looking at the rafters. So we appreciate He Who Seeks Vengeance. We appreciate Fred Gets Stoned and the Barney Rumbles. And let's get to some guest introductions. To my right,
fucking two of them looked around.
Well, maybe I didn't pay attention enough. I'm usually looking around when I come in.
it's a song. A song doesn't have a jersey.
Well,
all
maybe
right,
you made one.
Guest introductions. You heard him. Let's introduce him. Welcome, Paul.
So no one told you Paul was gonna be this way.
I die a little inside every time it starts, but then I hear your voice and it's better. Hi.
Hey. Hi, Paul. I
Welcome.
need to re-record duct tape song for you, huh?
Please.
Yeah, I might.
Hey, all of you fans out there, try to find duct tape.
That does not exist on the internet.
By, who did that? What was it?
Great question. Sitting across from me,
Right.
toiling away with the modeling clay, because we love when he does things that are creative here. Welcome back, Biggfoot.
What's going on, guys? I just want to sit around and play with clay. I was told that clay would help me with all my ailments in my head.
Let me touch your ball, little boy.
Can I touch your ball first, little boy?
Welcome, Bigfoot. Always a pleasure to have you. And, of course, not new to the show, but new to the theme song game. Remember, I said this is a placeholder. I put it together last minute. Welcome, Robbie.
Hello.
You don't even have to say hi.
Well, the real episode 100 champ is here.
The real episode. And that is true. Robbie did win the original taping of episode 100, which was marred with technical difficulties. Let's just call it a cancerous episode that never will hit the air, unfortunately. So the real champion's here. The new champion's here.
And Bigfoot.
And so what we've really got is episode 101 to settle the score between the second recording of episode 100 and the first recording of episode 100. So tonight,
And then I believe besides me, Casey has like the winningest record. So that would would that make him like the defending champion?
What I am going to call tonight, as of right this very moment, is the battle for number 2 guest. As you guys know, none of you can beat Mom Shy. That's not even my choice because she's my mother. If the vote goes out, she wins it every time. So tonight,
my choice because she's his mother.
Tonight, for now, the winner of this episode for season 5 will be dubbed the number 2 guest. All right, is that a decent title?
There's a prize.
There's a prize tonight.
Ooh, I get to take it home too.
And at the end, I'll even dub thee
Ooh.
number 2 guest. I have a machete. I'll fucking do it with the machete.
You can knight us with
That is
your
pretty
penis
metal.
on our
That's the
shoulders.
most serial killer thing about this show.
Can we get a video of it and then
Yeah,
put it
yeah.
on the Instagram?
We will. We'll have to hold it for like a month till we release the episode. But yes, absolutely. So at the end, we will dub a number 2 guest. We won't do it on the air because it won't translate to audio anyway. We'll do it for a video. We will dub the number 2 guest. We'll knight thee with a machete. I'll be careful. So tonight,
Ow, my ear!
seen the one where the guy has the sword and tries to chop a hot dog out of his
Oh my
friend's
god!
mouth?
And he hits that stupid motherfucker in the face.
He hits him in the nose. He like chops.
Oh, I
his nose
know.
and
And the
it's
guy
like,
turns around and his shit's just dangling.
yeah, it's pretty gnarly. But, all right, you guys know how the show works. Let me explain it for anybody that doesn't. Each week, I sit down with old friends, new friends, good friends, and bad friends to tell them the story of an infamous serial killer. Throughout the show, you guys can chime in on my story. And if you brought a story of your own that is true crime, dark, creepy, unsolved, or otherwise mysterious, please feel free to share it. Lastly, if you have questions about questions, make sure to ask questions because I cannot answer questions about questions if you never ask questions. Are there any questions besides Paul?
Can I put it in my pocket?
Yes.
Okay.
Then welcome to and let's play the Serial Chillers podcast. Oh, also new riffs coming in. Thanks, Who Seeks Vengeance.
That's smooth.
I know, velvety tones.
Dude, I feel like the autistic kid in the class right now. And like, just give him something to play with so he'll stop making that noise.
Okay, today's killers. Tell me, have you guys heard of Fred and Rosemary West?
Nah.
Yes.
Don't
Yeah,
believe
yeah.
so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Related to Kanye.
How did you know?
I Googled it.
So Greg has heard of them because I sent him the outline yesterday.
Actually, I've heard of them before you sent me the outline.
So in my face, Greg had heard of them before that. Robbie, shut up.
My
Yeah.
bad.
So there's a lot of let's call it. There's a lot of like controversy going around with podcasts and not citing work and plagiaristic forms. And I will
No way, really?
self-admittedly say that I don't always get my sources out there that I use, and I feel terrible for it looking back. So from now on, right at the top, I'm going to give you every source that I've used in putting this outline together. It's real quick, but I use the documentary Murderous Minds, Fred and Rose West, Fred and Rose West, Pure Evil from crimeinvestigation.co.uk, Fred West, Murderer from biography.com, Fred West's Wikipedia page, the Fred West page on criminalminds.fandom.com, the Fred West page on thefamouspeople.com, a webarchive.org page for an archived web page from the crime library. That's right, I'm using archived web pages to get to this shit, guys.
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
It's not a hard thing to do.
All right.
A non-credited essay on markedbyteachers.com, which is like a college professors put their students' work on there anonymously so other college professors can grade it and then kind of like, so this was a non-credited essay by them, yeah. And then the book Fred and Rose, the full story of Fred and Rose West and the Gloucester House of Horrors. I didn't read the whole book, but I got the idea.
Also, I'd like to cite my sources. Bibliotheca Pleiades, and what I'm just gonna call "quote unquote" the internet at large.
Yes, perfect. Okay. Question number 1. In what year
There we go.
was Fred West born? 250 points for the closest to the answer. 1,000 if you can nail it. In what year was Fred West born? Paul had his answer written down before I even asked you the question.
Yeah, well, you're getting repetitive with the number one question here, Jesse. I
It's
think I figured it out.
it's called having a thing, Paul.
And I like that thing.
I have
He
it.
just likes how
Paul?
he just likes how I say it.
I love it.
Okay, Paul says 1942. Bigfoot says 1952. Robbie says 1930. Paul's going to get 250 points because Fred West was born September 29th, 1941.
Don't worry, you guys still have time to catch up. There's like 23 questions left.
That's actually like pretty accurate. Did we accidentally send Paul the outline too?
No.
It probably wouldn't matter.
We weren't supposed to.
It's very true, though. It wouldn't matter.
Yeah, so 1941. Fred was born. He was born Frederick Walter Stephen West to Daisy and Walter West. While Fred was not the firstborn of the West family, he was the first surviving child. It's not the 1800s, but, the 1940s, the West family struggling, y'all. He was known when he was a baby for his curly blonde hair and piercing blue eyes. He was a pretty adorable child, I will say. Pictures of young Fred West, you're like, that is a pretty fucking cute baby. I won't lie. It does not stay that way.
Right, Yowie?
Over the
No such thing, first of all.
over the following 10 years, Daisy would give birth to another 6 children. The family, as you may know it, was extremely poor. At some points, the 8 of them shared a small 2-bedroom home. Of all the children, it was not hard to see that adorable little Fred, although the oldest, was by far the favorite. Specifically his mother. She doted upon him quite a bit. The family's 2-bedroom home did not have any indoor plumbing either. They just had a waste pit that was never emptied.
And what?
It's 1941.
You take the kid you don't like and make him get down in there and dig it a little deeper.
Yummy. Or you pay that one guy from the Craigslist ads to just come sit in your septic tank and wear his like weird gimp outfit. Seen
Or
those?
they probably just get a box of like Rid-X and sprinkle it in there.
I
That stuff's
don't-
supposed to eat your poo.
Poopy gun. Evaporate. Where's the poop?
Vaporize.
Vapor, but where does the poop go? Yes, over the following 10 years, Daisy's going to have 6 more children. Extremely poor family. No indoor plumbing, yes. But again, she's like, well, it was her first surviving child. Like it was 1712 or something. He's like, no, it was the 1940s. Yeah. So she was like a very domineering, mother. Like so much so that perhaps even though he had quite an abusive father, that his mom pretty much overcame. That is like pretty impressive. Trimmed and everything.
It's not to scale, though.
Greg,
Nice plumbus.
Well,
that's not a plumbus.
That's a penis.
Did you get a good
Part
look
of
at
a
that?
plumbus.
So,
Poop pit.
yeah, poop pit. Okay, so Fred's the favorite. Family didn't have indoor plumbing. Fred would often sleep in a bed well into his preteens with his mother.
Shocker.
Many reports that would say that the relationship was incestuous from a fairly early age. A lot of reports will say that essentially from the time Fred is capable of having sex, he's going to be having sex with his mother. So, the thing about it too is that like his father's like a major sexual piece of shit too. So it's like this Fred, like we say it a lot, but like never really had a chance in my opinion. That doesn't excuse what's going to happen later because his parents didn't murder well, that's actually questionable too. His father may have. This is his father's second wife and he may have killed his first wife. So that's fun.
Insurance money.
Yes. I
The
think
1940s, it's not really murder. It didn't really become murder until like the mid 80s.
So, Jesus Christ. He was not a very good student throughout school. He seemed to be bullied by a lot of his fellow students. And at this point, his baby good looks had betrayed him, and his hair had grown dark and straight, and he wore thick framed Coke bottle glasses. The documentary Murderous Minds mentions that he relied heavily on his siblings for companionship, mainly his younger brother John. However, most of his siblings and even John was quite a bully to the eldest brother. So he's like at school getting his shit kicked in by a whole bunch of other fucking kids, and he's just like trying to seek solace in, oh, well, like I got my brothers are here, and they're like, shut up, you stupid fuckface, and get away from me.
He's like, yeah, hey, little brother. They're like, shut up, loser.
Verbatim.
So
Pretty much.
we mentioned that it was a possibility that Fred and his mother had a much too close relationship, which would prove problematic for him later in life. But his father had a dirty habit that he would that wouldn't help Fred at all throughout his life, and he definitely tried to share. So, like, they have a shared farm, right? So, like, they've got a big old part of a field, and it's whatever, it's 10 acres, and they've got 2 acres of it, but there's no fences. Everybody knows where their land is, right. And everybody's got, like, farm hands and stuff out there, and people that are going to work. And so Fred's dad pretty much tells Fred, like, when you want it, you take it. And if you want it and you don't take it, you're fucking crazy. So Fred's dad would take Fred and pretty much just, like, see a farmhand on another field that he liked, and he would just rape her. And Fred would watch, and so Fred was at home getting raped by his mom at 12, and then his
That
dad
went a vastly different direction than I thought it was going to. I
Yeah,
thought he was just going to walk out there and be like, yo, you need a job?
You thought
I
he was gonna be
legit
like,
thought
come
he was
work
just
on
gonna be
my
like, you
farm.
go out there, you make him an offer they can't refuse, you shake the man's hand, you look him in the eye, and you hire him. I was not ready for that.
Are you new here?
We were talking about the dad.
Yeah, but they got to get the tendencies somewhere sometimes. So, yeah, here let's give it this right here to just calm us all down. But yeah, that was a nice palate cleanser. So, Fred is being raped by his mother. Fred is learning how to rape from his father.
It's a family business. So it's like some go into banking.
It's just not
some
making
play
any
some
money.
Sports dynasties.
The give take.
Yeah, I guess.
You gotta love family businesses.
Yeah.
I've always said that.
So Fred's father would openly rape the farmhands right in front of his son. It was much just normal goings-ons at the farm in Much Markle. So this is like this is a British crime. So get ready to hear me mispronounce British names. They're like, it's not Gloucestershire, it's Gloucester. So I'm just gonna go with Gloucester when I come around. Right? Everybody in Gloucester. I'm not making fun of you. It's hard, okay? I'm trying over here. Fuck you too, upstate New York. So Fred,
Scotland, for that matter.
I like them. Fred, after a while and not being able to really read or write, decided that school was not for him, that he could probably have an easier time doing something else. Question number 2. At what age did Fred drop out of school?
School is for fools. Look at me.
Oh, back to school. This is a 500 if you nail it, by the way, too, because it's a pretty small. Bigfoot says 13. Robbie says 14. Paul says 7. Okay.
How old are kids when they start school?
Well, we were just talking about it being 12, and we haven't. Anyway.
You told me to stop paying attention. Remember?
Okay, yeah, that is true. That is true. I did.
You never told me to come back.
So what he did was he dropped out at the age of 15. 250 points to Robbie on that one.
I was close.
You were close.
Yeah.
Paul, we did tell you to come back. You just
Times 2 plus 1, and you would have had it, Paul.
Wires are, they're broken.
Okay, so 250 for Robbie, 250 for Paul. Bigfoot not on the board yet, but you know what I like to say.
There's one
He's
through
working on his
question.
penis.
I got a handful of clay though.
Plenty of time.
Oh, that's what you say?
So after dropping out, he took a job with his father on the farm. So now he's not just helping on the farm, he's employed on the farm and no longer going to school. He'd learn some even more terrible habits from his father. He's an employed 15-year-old man at this point, and he spent a lot of his weekends in the city of nearby Ledbury. There, he could smoke cigarettes and drink and be an overall rebel kid.
At the age of 7? Dang.
The young teenager was a man about town, but started to become very vain and quite into himself and very forward. So he kind of like grew out of his ugly baby looks, and he's like pretty like sought after teenager at this point. Like it does pretty well with the ladies, but he's also a super fucking creep. He takes his dad's philosophy mostly towards things. he developed a bit of a reputation for it as well, so women tried to avoid him. He said to his friends, you just grab whatever you wanted. When it came to women, he got an extra special kick out of stealing his friends' girls.
Oh, jeez.
So he was like, it was like pretty cool for him to like go, just like it said his favorite thing was just like grab a chick by the ass and just start dragging her like, you're mine. And he would like do that to his homies' girls. Question number 3. He becomes a working man. He's been doing it a while. When he turns 17, he gets himself a vehicle. What does he get? Is it A, a motorcycle, B, a pickup truck, C, an older sports car, or D, a station wagon?
I really would have guessed van without windows, but that didn't seem to be on there.
That's E, other. That's the right answer.
Motorcycle, pickup truck, sports car, station wagon. All right. Paul said a pickup. Robbie said a station wagon. Bigfoot says a motorcycle and picks up 250 points because, yes, it was a motorcycle.
It's really hard to kidnap people on motorcycles, probably.
250.
It wasn't even one of the cool ones. It was one of the ones you had to pedal to get going.
You-
And they only top out at like 35.
I was
Not a
gonna say,
moped.
You have to ride them in the bike lane.
But you still have to wear the full helmet.
Okay, so it's November 28th, 1958. Fred is out on his motorcycle when he collides with a girl who is on her bicycle. Somehow, the young woman avoids major injury, but Fred isn't so lucky. He crashes hard and receives a major head injury and broken bones throughout his body. He would eventually have a steel plate placed on his skull for repairs. It was said that after this, Fred had a large change in personality. So we talk about this a lot. Like, I feel like most episodes have the head injury. And I feel like we maybe have never talked about this story or only in passing talked about this name. So if you've ever taken like an intro to psych class, you know this story because it's like one of the first ones they teach. But if you haven't, you may not know the story of Phineas Gage. Are you guys familiar?
I'm not. Nope.
So Phineas Gage was like this famous psychological subject because he was a construction foreman. Here's like the Wikipedia snippet. Phineas P. Gage, 1823 to 1860, was an American railroad construction foreman, remembered for his improbable survival of an accident in which a large iron rod was driven completely through his head, destroying much of his brain's left frontal lobe. And for that injury's reported effects on his personality and behavior over the remaining 12 years of his life. Effects sufficiently profound, for a time at least, that friends saw him, quote, as no longer George. So,
Gage.
sorry, yeah, no longer Gage. There was like an explosion. I don't remember the exact details, but a full iron rod passes through his head, goes to the hospital, they remove it, but it destroys like the entire front left lobe.
And you're talking like the mid 1800s here when they remove it. So it's not like they were like, okay, we're going to separate this piece here and remove this like this. Like you're talking like a half-cocked doctor with his foot on this guy's face, yanking on the other end of it.
It was 1848.
All right.
So there's some damage done.
Yes. So
We got it. We got some goo on it, but we got it.
it's a famous psychological case. You could look into it, but it's very, very interesting. He became a fucking horrible asshole. He just had no moral compass after that. He didn't go out and kill people or anything, but like he didn't like the people that he loved and that loved him, like it meant nothing to him anymore. That wasn't like a thing in his brain anymore.
Like not capable of love.
Like just really any like emotional connection.
It scrambled all of his circuits.
Yeah, that's a very important part of the brain.
Was it the brain injury, or was it because he went home and did cocaine about it?
I don't know. He would have probably been better if he had gone home and done cocaine about it. So just it's something we always talk about the head injury, but that's just an interesting story I like to that I always think about, but I don't think I ever bring up. So fun. There we go. So Fred is. A lot of his family says that this accident will alter his attitude and personality and have a huge effect on his physical appearance as well. The, quote, good looks that had blossomed as he grew into a man were ripped from him by this accident, as the accident left his face scarred and left him with crooked features and a permanent limp. After Fred's injury, life would be changed forever. None of the activities that he loved to do before were easy for him to do anymore. Question number 4. What was one particular activity he was the most upset to have lost the ability to do? Was it A, playing cricket, B, playing soccer or football, C, skiing, or D, dancing? Cricket, soccer, football, skiing, dancing.
I like to imagine him just like all beat up and gnarled after the accident, looking in the mirror, and he's like, my mother wouldn't touch me now.
Or saying, I'll never dance again. Robbie says soccer. Bigfoot says dancing. Paul says soccer. Well, that was your hint. Bigfoot gets 250
Yeah, I'm like,
points
oh, let me change it real quick.
because he loved to go to Ledbury and he loved to dance. And he could not do that anymore with that pimp limp he had going on. It was not a
Just
thing.
plants the one leg and walks in a small
I was
circle.
gonna say
to
you
the
still
right.
can. It's just gonna be a real awkward.
He dances
now.
like Frank Reynolds. He just goes, oh, 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 oh.
Hey, he got the ladies. He pulled.
Yeah, this is money. So he loved to dance. His handicaps are not going to allow him to do so. It was said that he was even given a pretty good amount of shit by his friends and other people that knew him and made fun of him for the accident.
Why don't you get out there and cut a rug, Gimpy?
Like, what a shitty thing. You already like have this terrible accident that's happened to you, and then all your friends like talk shit, and I don't know. It just seems like it kind of sucks. Unless they knew, like, yeah, you were drunk and barreled into a chick on a bike, then 100%, yeah, give him shit forever for his injuries.
Yeah, would your friends be your friends if they didn't give you shit for things?
I mean, like, how hard though? Like, legit, like, not nice. Like, you're like, hey man, that's not even a good joke, dude.
My feelings are just hurt.
Remember that time when you cheated death and you were crippled by it? I hope you live with that reminder for the rest of your life. Haha, got you good.
It
fucker.
reminds me of something similar. Dude, we had a kid at our high school. Yeah. So it was said his friends give him a lot of shit. I agree, Robbie. Friends should give each other shit. Fuck you, Paul. But
What?
there's a certain line that's got to be drawn somewhere. And I feel like a permanent disability is like, hey, can you take it easy for like maybe like a month?
Yeah,
He's gonna say no. Greg's also a there's never too soon kind of guy. So
Unless you say it before
no,
it
not
happens,
me.
there's no such thing as too soon.
So he would begin to show his earliest signs of aggression around this time of the head injury. Not from the injuries themselves, but the way he was treated as a result of them may have flustered him into some serious issues. Due in large part by his growing poor attitude, he and his father were not getting along at all, and thus Fred was beginning to have issues at home. He could not escape torment wherever he went in his mind, so he's like, oh, I go out with my friends and they're fucking giving me shit. I can't go to Ledbury anymore because I can't dance and there's like, I can't keep up with anybody because I can't fucking walk.
He's just his whole life's falling apart.
So at this time, he's going to meet a young woman who seemed to accept him for just who he was, a 16-year-old
too bad.
Catherine Costello, who went by the nickname, and we will refer to her as Arena. The two met at a dance in Muchmarkle. Arena was Scottish and from a small town near Glasgow. She was a bit of a ruffian and always in a lot of trouble with the law. She was actually into Fred's demonstrative ways towards women and rather relished in it whenever Fred would do it to her. So you just got to find your own, Like, you just got to find someone that likes what you like.
Find
That's
your
all.
kink partner.
Don't kink shame.
I never did. The two seemed to be the classic toxic couple, however, which culminated in them oftentimes having huge blow-up arguments, both in private and in public. Usually the ones in private were brought into the public, too. Eventually, Rena would go back to Scotland after the relationship had begun to deteriorate. Upon that, what happened?
When you said the ones in private get brought into the public, I just picture them like throwing hands and like backing out of the front door and like down the street and then like into the bar, and his friend's like, "You all right?" And he's like,
Just a limp still.
"Two, please." And then just like
Chugs a fucking room temperature Guinness and backs out the
smashes
back
the
door.
bottle and tries to stab her with it.
Okay, so the relationship falls apart. Arena goes back to Scotland. Upon the exit of Arena from his life, he began to convince a young girl of only 13 to have sex with him on a regular basis for 6 to 8 months. He still took his cruising trips to Ledbury, even though his confidence and good looks had been rattled. He was still as forward and handsy with the women as ever before. So now he's not even like a good-looking dude approaching women. He's like a fucking creepy peg leg running up and being like, "Let me touch your butt."
He's like Cotton, King of the Hill.
I killed 50 men.
Worse. So he's still going to Ledbury and still like getting his there too. Like he's not getting it somewhere else. He's just like, in the meantime, I need this 13-year-old to be banging me too. In one such event, he grabbed a woman by the arm in a train station. With his peg leg, he was not so sturdy. She turned him down, and on his second advance, she gave him a stern shove, which sent the poor-footed Fred West down a flight of stairs. Another serious head injury occurred that would result in him being unconscious for an extended period of time.
But because of science, it fixed his personality, right?
Question number 5. How long was he unconscious? Hours. Give me hours.
I was gonna say
Hours.
I was gonna say 4 minutes. So
I know. I
So
know.
point
That's
zero-
why I said give me hours, because I knew people were going to be like 4 minutes. Because being
that
unconscious,
0.04?
just for the record, anybody who's out there, being unconscious for more than just a few seconds is very dangerous. This is
You're
not a
usually awake
Batman
when you hit the
comic.
ground.
Yeah, this isn't a Batman comic. You don't like knock out all the bad guys in the room and hack the computer and steal the information, Robin. That doesn't. You should be popping like right back up after you get knocked out, or you're probably suffering some severe brain damage.
Yeah, I was gonna say I watch like fight
Will you use some
videos
whole
and stuff,
numbers?
and I'll watch where like they'll knock somebody
can.
out and then like storm around them for 2 minutes and yell at them and shit while they're unconscious, and I'm like, somebody get that man some help.
Yeah. Straighten that neck out, please. All right, Bigfoot says 17 hours. Robbie says 2 hours. Paul says 1.7 hours for whatever reason. And Bigfoot's got another 250
Dang.
points because Fred remained unconscious for about 24 hours.
Isn't that considered a coma?
The next day, Fred stays unconscious. So Bigfoot's on a roll. 3 questions in a row. He's got correct. He's now up 750 to 250 each of you.
There's no decimal point here. We're tied. That's an M.
No. So Fred remained unconscious for about 24 hours, and after regaining consciousness, he would be even more short-tempered and agitated. There you go, Greg. Answer your question.
So instead of fixing the problem, it compounded the problem.
Correct.
weird.
It exacerbated things, if you will.
Depends on what the problem was, Greg.
Around this time, it was found out that the 13-year-old girl he had been sleeping with for 6 to 8 months was pregnant. And as a result of this, he was charged for raping a 13-year-old girl. At this time, his mother kicked him out of the house because of the controversy. She didn't want to be the talk of the town with a rapist.
You're cheating
son.
on me?
So he lived with his Aunt Violet at the time. This was his mother's sister, but the rest of his family wouldn't talk to him. Like, you raped a 13-year-old? No way. And his mom's like, shh, don't tell anybody. So he's in.
Like, what a fucking double standard. Like,
So, as often we see with pieces of shit of this caliber, we will see Fred never get in any trouble for any of his crimes, especially impregnating this 13-year-old girl. Question number 6, why did he get away with the rape of this 13-year-old girl? Was it A, that she refused to testify? B, his lawyer actually found a loophole? C, he ran? Or D, the girl's family dropped the charges?
Can you imagine him running now?
Yeah, he hobbled, I should say.
Yeah.
So he refused to testify. His lawyer found a loophole. He left town. The girl's family drops the charges. Refuses to testify, says Bigfoot and Paul. Robbie says that his lawyer found a loophole. It's a good lawyer. Gloucester, but no!
Yep.
She refused to testify. She was too terrified to face Fred West again.
Smart.
So Fred West walks. She refused to testify. 250 points to both Bigfoot and Paul. Bigfoot's still on that roll. Paul's back up there. 500 points for Paul. 1,000 for Bigfoot. 250 points for Robbie. You know the deal. Plenty of time, guys. After the
do you think their lawyers and stuff at this point in time had to wear like those powdered wigs and stuff?
it's like the mid 1950s.
They did that shit until like,
So yes,
I think they still do it actually in court
yeah.
there.
Yeah, so they did.
So after the controversy, the scandal died down. His mother asked him to return home, and he did. So she's like, "Oh, it's all over? Yeah, you can come back home." To his surprise, he would also find out that Rena was back in Muchmarkle, and the two would reunite. Much had changed since they last saw one another, Fred suffering traumatic brain injuries, and she had been a sex worker back in Glasgow for almost the entire 2 years since they had last seen one another. The only time she was not doing sex work was when she spent a stint in jail for being caught shoplifting. The last and most different thing about Rena was that she was now pregnant. Fred, not liking the idea of having another man's child, decides that abortion, clearly the best possible way here. So what does he say? Grab me that hanger and put up those legs.
Ooh.
So he, yeah. So he essentially gets the process started. Someone walks in on them, and they both kind of lose the. So it never happens. She's going to give birth to the child eventually. So I don't know if they both just were like, all right, never mind. I looked in there and I don't really see anything.
Look back.
Right.
It winked at me.
Sometimes when you stare into the void stares back.
So they did attempt to do so, but they were walked in on and decided not to do it after all. Fred would then go ask her to marry him and agreed to raise the child as his own. Knowing that his family would in no way approve of the union, he waited until after he was 21 and could get married without his family's permission. So on November 17th, 1962, the two were married just about 45 days after Fred's 21st birthday. His brother John was the only guest. Fred and Rena would spend their first night as a married couple in the living room of the pissed off Daisy West. So Fred's like, all right, my mom really hates the fact that we got married. What are we going to do for our honeymoon? Check it out. My mom's living room.
Romance.
So Daisy, not thrilled by the wedding. Like I said, it was kind of like a sneak wedding that she wasn't invited to. Not
Hey,
liking,
got married. Can I crash on your couch tonight?
not liking their current prospects, they packed the car and headed to Scotland to give it a go where Rena came from. So they're like, well, fuck it. It's not good here. Let's go back where you came from and give it a shot there.
I can go back to my old job, fucking dudes, and
So it was
you just
said
stay home and take care of the kid.
it was said to be a terrible place to live, and to make matters worse for Rena, she was starting to discover whom Fred actually was. Fred never stopped expecting violent sex from Rena. Most of the time, she claimed that they were just full-on rapes. Fred would encourage her to take up her old position as a sex worker once more and beat her severely, sometimes on a near daily basis. Even though at this time, Rena was very pregnant. She's like 8 months pregnant. And he's like, no, you're gonna whore, and I'm gonna kick your damn ass. No, you're gonna whore, and I'm like, there's an accent there. I'm not gonna try it anymore, but you get the idea. She's 8 months pregnant, and he's like, you're a prostitute, and yeah, here's some ass kickings on a daily. So, March 22nd, 1963, their baby is born.
Just go.
Her name is Charmaine Carol Mary. However, most immediately there is an issue. The child is very clearly mixed race, and she looks quite Asian. Rena, having been in sex work at the time of her conception,
Just sleepy.
made knowing who exactly the father was nearly impossible. This shocked her family as, like, hardcore. Her family was like, what the fuck is this? And so as to not...
Quick question.
Yeah.
That
So that was like the experiment. So as to not raise any issues with Fred's family, they were like, we lost our baby. This is adopted. We adopted this one. And so they were like, oh, well, that I guess makes sense.
And
So
they're just dumb enough.
yeah, yeah. They're like, hold on, I gotta go shit in the shithole.
I forgot about the shithole.
I left your brother down there.
I like how we're giving them fucking backwoods Kentucky accents, and they're from Much Markle.
because white trash that sounds the same everywhere.
Yeah, that's true. So this would cause the two to separate again because Fred is really resenting Charmaine and the fact that she's not his, one, the fact that she's Asian, two. So it's like, it's not, he can't even pretend it's his kid because it's like, it's very clearly not. So he's like, he has mad resentment issues over this kid. So the two split up again. She's going to go and live on her own in Glasgow with Charmaine. And Fred's going to go kind of do his own thing, but stay in Glasgow. It won't be long before they returned back to one another. They tried to get on normally with their life and moved to a small home at 25 Savoy Street. Apparently, Fred would make regular trips back to Much Marcle, which is about a 6-hour trip, alone. And whenever he would be in Much Marcle, he would brag heavily about how he was practically a drug kingpin in Glasgow. Some believed him, others did not. But one thing was certain. Question number 7. What was his actual job at this time?
I was just wondering
in
that, too.
Glasgow? Was he A, a landscaper, B, an ice cream truck driver, C, a lifeguard, or D, a police officer?
Can you imagine being a lifeguard?
Landscaper, ice cream truck driver, lifeguard, police officer.
He can't swim in a straight line because of his legs. So
Exactly.
you better hope that your victim's
maybe
at
that's
45 degrees.
Maybe that's the only place you can get a straight line going.
Nah,
All right, Robbie said
imagine
ice
swimming
cream
in
truck
circles.
driver. Paul said landscaper. Bigfoot said, was it police officer? Police officer. 250 points to Robbie. Ooh. Yeah, he.
My ice
He had
cream truck
popsicles
plays
in his
rap.
pocket and wanted the kids to fish him out for him.
Well, I was gonna say, Casey, you think he's gonna pass a police physical with his peg leg? He's perfectly suited to be the good humor man.
I mean, have you seen the cops over there?
No.
Yeah, they don't even have guns.
Yeah.
They're not called cops either. They're called bobbies.
Like here's
All
this. Here's this stick. So,
Sticking a whistle. If there's a
they didn't have
crime,
to give
you
him a
blow
club
it, and
here, he
I'll
had a
come
leg.
help you.
well, the main reason, and Fred loved this about his job, about driving this truck, was that he loved the job for the simple fact that it gave him an opportunity to find new, very young women to victimize. Now, I shouldn't say young women. It was girls. He's finding girls. He's finding 12 to 15-year-old girls at the ice cream truck, often inviting them into his van for sexual assault. Yeah, let's call it sexual assault. For rape.
Hello, love. You like Elvis and ice cream, do you?
So July 1964 was a perfect time for that, I suppose, and that's when Rena gives birth again. This time it's to Fred's child, and the two named this little girl Anne-Marie. Apparently, Fred treated Anne-Marie quite nicely and was very violent and abusive towards Charmaine, the daughter he hated. At this time, the family was growing and moved once more. Okay, so Fred and his family have this farm now. It's away from their home, but it's like a plot of land that they're able to farm on. And Fred took meticulous care of it. He's got these 5 subsections in the farm, but there's always this one that was empty. Never grows anything in it. And Fred's just like, I'm growing it for something special. But Fred is also known for taking young women back to his plot late at night and taking advantage of or raping them. There are multiple cases of missing women from that time in West Scotland, and it could be the beginnings of what will later become something that Fred will be known for. Some people believe that there could have very well been bodies in that empty plot of farmland. Fred, being the ever adulterous husband, had many extramaritals and would child at least one other child from another woman whose name was Stephen. Even the popular character in the area, things would take an even more tragic turn when question number 8. What finally got Fred out of Glasgow? Was it that he A, beat up a child, B, ran over a kid with his ice cream truck, C, robbed a well-known elderly couple, or D, stole a school bus? Did he beat up a kid, run over a kid with the ice cream truck, rob a well-known elderly couple, or steal a school bus? All right. Bigfoot says stole a bus. Sorry. Robbie said robbed an elderly couple. Bigfoot said beat up a child. So everything but run over a kid.
No.
What? Paul said beat up a child.
Nailed it.
Yep. I'm breaking the rust off too. Everything but run over a kid with his ice cream truck. What would finally get Fred out of Glasgow is while on duty would run over a kid with his ice cream truck. He was said to, quote, accidentally hit a kid with his truck before the child would die. So the kid was dying. He was knock him down and give him some road rash.
Threw it in reverse to go back and see what he hit.
Killed the kid. So it would officially be ruled an accident, but Fred was vilified and essentially all but ran out of town. Everybody just came up to his ice cream truck and just hit him with, not anymore, Fred. Not selling ice cream in this town.
This town ain't big enough for the both of us, is it, governor?
You guys have a big fan base over there or something?
No, they'll love
anymore.
it. They'll love it. Rena would not initially join him, but would down the line with 2 friends of hers who wanted to try and start a life over in England from Glasgow. Those 2 women are Isa McNeil and Anna McFall. Fred picked up the children and women from the train station, and within days, Anna and Isa were wishing they were back in Scotland and couldn't believe how unpredictable and how unacceptable the home was. After some time there, it became evident that whether it be Stockholm Syndrome or what Anna grew to really like in Fred, but Anna is seeming to really like the place. But the 3 still decide to try and escape with Rena. And Rena calls an ex from Scotland and is essentially you got to come fucking get us out of here. So the ex shows up, the 3 are packing up, and Fred senses something is wrong and shows up back to the home early when they're trying to escape. But this is actually likely due in part... You can crack that. This is likely because Anna had told him what was happening and she wanted to be caught. So when Fred shows up, a violent argument takes place, ending with Fred saying that if they're going to go, he's keeping the children. After heated arguments, Rena and Isa would reluctantly leave without the kids, and Anna would volunteer to stay behind and look after the children. At this time, Anna was 16 and having a very hard time taking care of children. So she's just got 2 kids that aren't hers because she's super into whatever Fred's got going on, apparently, which is, from all we know, just mostly violent rape. So,
A lot.
yeah. So Anna's having a very hard time with taking care of the two kids. So what does Fred do? Puts them into foster care and would get them back every so often when they couldn't be fostered into a home. But
Shit.
yeah, he's just like, there you go.
Come on back for a little while and know what I
Sound
want
like
to
He
do.
was using their foster care system like a child storage yard, like
Yeah, I
where
was gonna
people
say
park their
boarding.
RVs. Like, yeah, I'm gonna put it here for a while, but then when like I'm gonna go on vacation, it'd be nice to have.
Okay, so Rena gets back to get the children, and it was then she realized that Anna and Fred were involved. It said that she maybe even walked in on them having sex and was like, oh, okay,
Time.
I see here. Yeah. So she is able to get the children back, but instead of going back to Glasgow, because she is so fucking mad about the fact that Anna was boning Fred now, she stayed nearby instead of returning. Furious at Fred, she went on a stealing spree and followed back to Scotland, where she was arrested. So they followed her the 6-hour drive back on her stealing spree, and she's arrested. So question number 9, what was her punishment for the multiple crimes, which included a lot of shoplifting and a few breaking and entering charges? Was it A, 3 years probation, B, 1 year in jail, C, 1 year probation, or D, there's actually no punishment?
Ooh, for 6 hours of stealing.
Followed from Muchmarkel to Glasgow, where she was arrested. Okay, 3 years probation from both Robbie and Paul. Bigfoot says no punishment. 200. Oh, you have arrows pointed. This is very confusing.
I used a. I apologize. Hold on.
Thank you. I was like, oh man, there's like arrows pointing directly to it. Okay, Bigfoot and Paul both say no punishment. Robbie says A, 3 years probation. Good answer, change Paul, because Robbie gets 250 points with the
Hold on.
with the 3 years probation.
Did you see the arrows?
That
Fuck.
that Rena received. So yeah, 3 years probation. She went on a stealing spree. She's followed. I can't remember the detective's name, but her last name is Savage. He did send Anna
Like
home.
it is Savage.
Randy.
Her last name is Savage.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Named Randy with an I.
Fred said that he would essentially she gets the 3 years because Fred's like, look, I'm going to take care of my wife, and he promises Rena that he's going to send Anna home. And he's going to take care of her now. Like, I'm sorry, I fucked up, but like, look, I got this. You'll stay out of trouble. 3 years probation, no big deal. We got this. So he sends Anna home, but would continue the relationship with her as well as the one with Rena. So he would just like head up to Glasgow, get his in with Anna, and then come back home, be with Rena for a while. So before we get too hot, let's take a break here. We're going to come back with Greg's story. Greg's got a hella Greg question for you as well.
Ooh, what is it?
Hell yeah.
Bigfoot, look at Greg. He's trying to give you the signal of how good it's about to be.
I think you'll enjoy this. I just knowing what I know about you, I think you're gonna have fun.
What about me?
I think that means we won't enjoy it.
Yeah.
He's
No,
like, Paul, grab your phone off the
will
charger.
you guys will probably like the story, but Casey's gonna have some strong opinions. I feel.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, cool. I'll just be over here.
So we're actually flying through this a little faster than I thought. So let's take 10 or 15 here. Let's let this room cool down, take a little break, get your joints started, whatever you want to do. So let's go back to the show real quick here. All right, so we're going to take a break here. We'll come back with the Hella Greg story. We will then finish off with the fucked up case of Fred and Rose West. We haven't even met Rose yet, y'all. You know
Yeah. I'm like, what was this lady's name again?
We're not
what was
even,
the other one?
we're not even there yet. So
Elsa and Anna, those are the ones that were banging him.
Hella Greg, Issa and Anna. Hella,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so, well, I'm a father, and I've watched Frozen too many times to get that image in my head of them fucking Fred West, Rule 34.
Hold on. Rule 35. If you can't find it, you got to make it.
Oh, that has to exist. So come back, or we'll kill you.
Hi, I'm Lindsay,
And I'm Bree.
and together we are Death & Co. Podcast.
Lindsay, what's keeping you alive this week?
Probably the warm sunshine that kisses me awake each morning. It makes me feel like Snow White. What about you, Bree?
I think my psychiatrist telling me that it's not just me and people really are made up of garbage.
Check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Death & Co. Podcast.
And download and subscribe today on your favorite podcast
All right, let's
platforms.
do this.
Bye.
Welcome back, everybody, to the season premiere, episode 101, Serial Chillers. I won't go too far into this because you already know what it is. Time for, let's hit him again, Hella Greg. Take it away, mate.
As I said, oh shit, hold on. Okay, as I said at the beginning, my research is brought to you by the internet at large and Bibliotheca Pleiades. If you don't know what that is, go to that website, click on the little box that says Buscador, and just search all your favorite conspiracies.
Bring that mic closer to your face.
Tell me how to live. How's this?
It's called producing.
Right, producer Jesse. So I'm going to lead us off with a couple of quotes here, and then I'll give you my question, and then we'll get into the topic. So the United Nations is the greatest fraud in history. Its purpose is to destroy the United States. That is U.S. Congressman John E. Rankin. From the UN World Constitution, they say, the age of nations must end. The governments of nations have decided to order their separate sovereignties into one government to which they will all surrender their arms, which is also a little scary. No one will enter the New World Order unless he or she will make a pledge to worship Lucifer. No one will enter the New Age unless he will take a Luciferian initiation. And that is David Spangler, director of Planetary Initiative from the United Nations.
I thought he was going to say David Spade.
Hail Satan!
That would be the coolest thing, literally, that David Spade has ever done.
I don't know. Joe Dirt is pretty good.
Joe Dirt's great, but if David Spade was trying to start a New World Order and it was all state-based.
Yeah. All right. I back it. That's better than Joe Dirt.
Okay.
Joe
Dang.
Dirt.
Don't try and
trying to
church
church
it
it
up,
up.
boy. Don't you know it's
Okay.
dirt?
So, aside from David Spangler, who we just mentioned, question number 10: who is the government official who is a quote self-confessed Luciferian? Is it A, Condoleezza Rice?
Condoleezza Rice. That sounds like a Mexican dish.
Colin Powell.
Oh, okay. B, Colin Powell. That was actually my B. C, Robert Mueller, or D, Barry Obama. Those are your choices. Who was it? Don't.
There aren't more than 4. Quit looking at me.
I didn't prepare more.
Look at your paper and write something. If you have hate in your heart, let it out.
Okay, who you got? What do you got?
2 C's and a B.
Paul and Robbie both say C. Bigfoot says B. Colin
It
Powell.
is Robert Mueller.
High five.
My bad.
Be better with your high fives.
The Moscow Mule.
Yeah, Bob Mueller.
Bob Mueller.
Yeah, he's a Luciferian.
You brothers want to see my face?
Show us your
So,
face.
Allow me to set the mood here.
Really quickly, Paul's got 750 points. Robbie has 1,000. Bigfoot has 1,000.
With 37 questions to go, there's plenty of time.
Shut up.
I mean, there is. So
There's only 21 questions, by the way, bitch face.
With 11 questions to go, there's still over half the questions left and plenty of time.
They're all worth 4 points from now on.
For Paul.
I'm fucked.
Okay, so Bob Mueller. He's a self-confessed Luciferian and a New World Order leader and a former Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations. Mueller is one of the foremost leaders in the New Age, New World Order movement, whose number one goal is to produce Antichrist so that he can rule the newly formed global government. In fact, Mueller claims his guiding spirit is none other than Master Dewal Kull, or Master DK, also referred to as the Tibetan. This demon was the guiding spirit of Alice A. Bailey, director of the House of Theosophy, as quoted above. So, that's fun. In case you guys hadn't figured out, this whole thing's about the fucking New World Order. Like, I'm pretty anti-government as it is, and I'm definitely anti-one world government.
You don't say.
Yeah, like let people be themselves, and that's why I figured Casey would have some hot takes on this. I figure
preach.
Say it again for the people in the back.
I told Greg the only thing I really know about the New World Order is everything I learned from that
Hulk Hogan?
Aerosmith video game where you fight the New World Order.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it was an arcade game, but I played it on PC. You just
An emulator.
yeah, you just shot at the New World Order every level with your mouse cursor.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much. I was all about that shit. It was an Aerosmith video game. I just want to clear up. That's what we were dealing with there. Guess who did the soundtrack?
Aerosmith.
What? Oh, 250 points.
No, they're called Narrowsmith, and they're a tribute band.
Didn't have to pay him nearly as much.
That's right. They could get the rights to those songs.
Hey, Tyler Steven, hit it.
So this revelation is a really heavy duty because it's an important and powerful demon that would not spend his time with anyone other than a heavyweight world leader, Robert Mueller, who once wrote, quote, if Christ came back to Earth, his first visit would be to the United Nations to see if his dream of human oneness and brotherhood had come true. I think if Christ came back to Earth, his first visit would be the bathroom. I can't imagine that is a short flight.
I mean, ask Lord Zeno.
I feel like Christ is humble. He takes the bus.
So there's a bathroom on the back. No, there isn't. Uh-oh.
There is now.
I got on the wrong bus.
Yeah. Mueller, by the way, is associated with the Lucius Trust, which is a New Age organization that evolved from the Lucius Publishing Company, previously known as the Lucifer Publishing Company. So, you know. Yeah, I mean, like, my problem with doing all this research is they were like, listen, it's all related to the Bible. The New World Order is, and I'm like, dude, I'm not looking for the Bible aspect. I just want the one world government aspect. Like, the Illuminati side of it. I don't want the biblical side of it because you're trying to sell me on Satan being a bad guy, and I don't buy it. I don't fucking buy it. So I had a hard time with this, but I really like this article because it just kind of breaks down a few different things. Beyond Bob Mueller, it goes to the United Nations armies. During the presentation in Arcadia, a film was shown in which the United Nations armies were brought into a West African nation to bring, quote, peace. They encountered several hundred civilians and thus opened fire on them with machine guns and rifles. Vividly shown in the film was one lady carrying her child. The head of the child suddenly exploded as a .30 caliber machine gun bullet blew it open like it was a watermelon, and then another bullet struck the mother and she fell down. So, you know, those blue helmets out there doing somebody's work, killing people. The masses, several hundred women and children, eventually were all slaughtered by the United Nations troops who had come to bring, quote, peace. And then they joked and laughed about their job and how they completed that and now must go on to find others.
Okay, pause.
Now, okay.
Might need to keep this around all season. This is really making me feel better.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Sorry.
That should be a thing. It really should be.
Just little palate cleansers.
Yeah.
Gets too deep.
Well, that was it about the United Nations armies. I mean, they're just like, you know, a nation of armies that's supposed to represent the world, but they're really, I mean, like, you can't represent the world when you roll in and just murder people. Also, this article, like, I was reading it, and about this point in the article when I was reading it, I was like, this seems a little slanted. Seems a little biased, but, you know, take that with a grain of salt. Just, you know, listen for the information. Remove the opinion. Freedom from War, the United States Program for General and Complete Disarmament in a Peaceful World, summarizes that the official U.S. plan for transfer of all U.S. military assets to the United Nations. So basically, they get our army for whatever reason, because that seems like a good idea. This program, first made public in 1961, is moving forward at a frightening pace. The New American, November 29th, 1993, and September 19th, 1994. That's the source for that. On May 10th, Marines at the 29 Palms Marine Base in California were given a, quote, combat arms survey, which posed a number of alarming statements to which the Marines were to register their agreement or disagreement. So, you know, it'd be like some really obscene stuff like, you know, you're in a combat zone, or you're ordered to kill women and children in a combat zone. How do you react? And then you're ordered to kill women and children at home. How do you react? And if these guys are like, what they're told is if they're like, oh yeah, just follow orders, do it. They're not like, they're going to get penalized for it, you know? Because that's crazy. Why would you do that? But what they're really doing is looking for the ones who are going to be like, fuck it, follow orders. And those are the ones that get tapped to be a blue helmet, is what this sounds like. The final statement, number 46, posed the situation in which the federal government had banned the possession of all, quote, non-sporting firearms and had required all Americans to turn over their weapons to authorities. The Marines were asked if they would be willing to fire on Americans who resisted gun confiscation. When the New American first broke the story, the damage control spinmeisters at the Department of Defense assured everyone that this was an isolated incident which only involved an officer gathering information for his master's degree thesis. Since then, however, another Marine has provided us with a copy of the same survey, which was given at his base, Camp Pendleton, California. So it seems like it's starting in California.
Weird.
Cool. At least it's in close proximity, so it happens quick and I don't have to watch it spread across the nation. Coming in the wake of PDD 25, the flurry of anti-gun legislation in 93-94, the grisly carnage perpetrated in Waco due to the administration's irrational zeal for gun confiscation alarm is justified. So, you know, they're trying to rationalize disarming of their citizens, which, regardless of what you feel about guns, all people not having guns is bad. Just because that this is what happens when nobody has guns. And like I'm sure there's probably going to be somebody in New Zealand who's going to call me a cunt and be like, "We don't have guns," and I mean, we do, so you don't have to. But whatever.
I digress.
Yes, getting into numbers now. April 25th, 1945. 425, or 4 + 2 + 5. That equals 11. Delegates from 50 nations met in San Francisco on April 25th, 1945 for what was officially known as the United Nations Conference on International Organization. During a 2-month period, they completed a charter consisting of 111 articles, there it is again, based on the draft developed at the Dumbarton Oaks. The charter was approved on June 25th, or 625, which is 6 + 2 + 5, which is 13. Okay, that's 2 more.
I saw this Jim Carrey movie like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
and signed the next day. It became effective on October 24th, 1945, after ratification by a majority on the signatories. The bonds of the wartime alliance would undoubtedly hasten the agreement on establishing a new organization. In December of 1945, the Congress of the United States invited the UN to establish its headquarters in the United States. The organization accepted it in August of 1946, moved to a temporary location in Lake Success, New York, which is like that's a pretty solid name if you're going to name your lake something.
Success, that's the way you spell success.
See, I always spelled it wrong because I always spelled it the Bart Simpson way. Yeah. Succees, that's the way you spell success.
Him and Homer have definitely something in common with spelling.
Homer's so smart.
I am so smart.
SMRT.
The organization accepted and in August 1946 moved to a temporary location in Lake Success, New York. New York was the 11th state to endorse the Constitution. There's number 11 again. Later that year, the site was purchased bordering on the East River in New York City. New York City is exactly how many letters? That's right, 11 letters. And plans for a permanent headquarters were drawn up.
They made 11 drafts, and there were 11 guys who had 11 beers each before the 11th final draft was chosen.
You're likely asking why the number 11 is so important. In systems such as astrology and basic numerology, 11 is considered to be a master number because it's the first repeating digit. Like repeating digits are considered to be master numbers, 11, 22, 33, 44, etc.
Cool.
10 being a perfect number, 11 represents the exceeding of both. It's interesting to note that 11, when broken down, 1 + 1 is 2. Comprises of the 2 of duality. Lucifer tried and wanted to be equal to God. Number 11 is a master vibration and as such should be not reduced to a single number. People with this number could both be idealistic and visionary, and they are attracted to the unknown. They can be both unusual, interesting, and magnetic personalities. So, you know, man, check your number. If you're an 11, there it is again.
Astrology's kind of dumb.
What are you talking about, dude? Repeating numbers. Look, listen. You're fucking up my vibrations now.
Is Robbie's microphone not working again? Okay.
My brother was so into numerology. He counted all the numbers in our names, added them up. Was like, all right, you're this personality. Yeah, that makes sense. You're this personality. Yeah, that makes sense. And then when our kids were born, he did it for our kids too. He was super into it. Not so much anymore, but he was.
That's how you do it.
Yeah. So you add up, the numbers in your name, and then
Is
First
it like
and
your full,
last
is it
or
like
all
your
na-
full legal name, or is it what you go by?
your first name, what your first name is, and then you add it up, and then there's a website,
7.
probably tons that
Yours is 7.
tell you what like personality you are, what type of person you are. Yeah.
Cool, man.
My first name is only comprised of 3 letters. You know what I'm saying?
3 different letters.
I'm gonna have to like write
3
mine
different
down.
letters. Sorry.
Same here.
Mine's 4.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, if your number is a double digit, you add them together, and then that's your number.
Unless it's a repeating number like 11. That's a master number.
Oh yeah, wow.
See?
We're deep. We're
We're
deep
back
into
to
this.
11. Did you guys see that?
I can't believe I'm talking
There
more
it is
about
again.
this than he is.
I need more weed.
Get this man some weird.
Like I said, let me set the scene.
The smoking man.
11 brings the gift of spiritual inheritance and is gifted as the light bearer. So, there. 11 is a sacred number, and when 11 is multiplied by the perfect number, 3, then you get the number 33. That's produced. A number of tremendous occult importance. In 1933, Adolf Hitler became president, and FDR came to power. Wait, that's not right. Adolf Hitler came to power,
Yeah.
and FDR became president.
I was like, wait a
Thought you
second.
were super high right now.
Greg's
One
getting his
written
information from Greg's getting his information from an alternate reality where Hitler was a US president.
That's 2 terrible human beings came to power.
Hey, FDR was one of the last people's presidents.
Whatever you say, bro. Whatever you say.
They brainwash you too, man.
Yeah, they got to Greg. Greg's like, oh, I love Social Security numbers.
Cared
now.
about
That's
the people
greatest
because
thing
if they
ever."
didn't, they would have taken his chair. They already took his legs.
Wonder what kind of pants you wore
FDR
under
fought
there.
that famous Italian dictator Marco Polio. So both of these men were committed to the establishment of the New World Order. So while officially in the official capacity they were at war, these fuckers are sitting at the same table.
Where was the table?
Oh man, I wish there was video of that right there.
I know the video podcast is going to be a fucking beautiful thing when it happens.
Pay your $5, people.
You can see Greg hack.
It's really
See
funny.
stuff come out.
Dude, it's so funny when you almost die from coughing now.
Yeah, I'm laughing over here. I mean, in 1933, the first human manifesto was issued. Do you see how Satan manipulated the world history to produce 3 New World Order events in 1933? Do you see?
That darn Satan.
I do see.
Yeah. Thus, a powerful 333 served as a framework for world events in that year. There's a secret document. I'm almost done, I swear. There's a top secret document, a copy of a top secret document that has been smuggled out of the Executive Office building in Washington, D.C. Parts of it read as follows. On transfer of sovereignty to the United Nations, those who do not conform to the United Nations authority will be considered resistors and declared enemies of the government. Public statements in support of the old ways and favoring continued United Nations nationalism will be considered enemy doctrine. Enemy doctrine. Those are words. The purpose for this buildup of world wars was to create a need for peace so that the United Nations may be needed and then created as a solution for establishing peace between nations. Create a war, create a problem, solve the problem. But in solving the problem, create a fucking bigger problem.
Here, let me get that for you.
Thanks, man. This soon became the League to Enforce the Peace, which is the weakest fucking name I've ever heard.
It's like a knockoff of Justice League.
Well, wait till you hear the next one, because it became the League of Nations.
Yeah.
And then finally the United Nations, which is the worst yet. If you look at things from a historical perspective, the United Nations today has implemented or is in the process of implementing all the plans of Adam Weishaupt's manifesto. In 1848, Karl Marx wrote the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto, which he copied from an article written by Adam Weishaupt in 1797. This article was named How to Change a Republic into a Democracy. It is the foundation of what a communist ideology is all about. See, now, again, I had the same conversation with Sam when we were watching a documentary. I said, look, there's a lot of good information in here, but there's also a lot of fucking opinion. Stuff like that, what I just said right there, that's opinion. Don't fucking listen to that.
Why you say it then?
Because it's in the article. I'm not just going to change this guy's words.
Yeah, this is journalistic integrity right there.
Leave it in there. That's for the people to decide. I want to tell them that is opinion, that is not fact. But I'm putting that guy's opinion out there so they know where this writer is coming from. Because like Casey and I have talked about with the Bible, the time it was written and how it was intended to be interpreted are two of the most important aspects in literature.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Preach.
I think this is the most passionate I've seen him in a Greg side story.
He needs to start smoking joints every time he tells a story.
It looks like he's on stage, doing a rant, just complaining.
What's
going
gonna
to
happen is it's gonna be like all of a sudden season 7 is gonna start and it's gonna be like, "What's up, everybody? I'm Hella Greg and welcome to the Serial Chillers podcast." And it's gonna be like, "And we've got a side story from co-host Jesse coming down the line here." It's just
it'll never happen because I won't do the legwork. It'll die before it makes it to that point. George Bush. When George Bush took us to war in the Persian Gulf, he stated boldly that he did not need the approval of congressmen anymore to declare war because he had United Nations mandates.
And he also said, "Tacos rule."
And he said, "No, you're thinking of W.
Persian
Gulf.
He just had silly socks. That's all.
No, he's
not gonna do it.
No, it's Ronald Reagan. Never mind.
Reagan smash.
We talked about this.
Sleepy.
Reagan smashed at least once. So yeah, this is George Herbert Walker Bush, who was named after a major player in secret societies and was also involved in the assassination of JFK. This George Bush, we have sacrificed a large part of our U.S. sovereignty. The United Nations has recently passed a Declaration of Children's Rights. See, now there's fact and opinion again. Fact is they passed the declaration. Opinion is giving up the sovereignty. You decide that.
The opinion is, do children have rights?
It is now a right of the child to receive vaccinations, which do more harm than good, and a parent doesn't have the right to interfere.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, no, again, just giving you the opinion of the writer.
I got you.
Parents who interfere with the rights of a child or abuse a child are accused of abuse and have their child taken away by the state. If you are seen spanking a child more than 2 or 3 times, the child abuse police will be unleashed against you.
I picture a robot just like popping out of a corner. Hey, no.
I picture like a 7-year-old making things up, like, "I'm going to call the child abuse police on you."
That was on 2 different TV shows. First one to do it was Martin when he was the little kid. And he was like, "I'm going to call the child abuse hotline. It's 999 abuse." And then the second one was South Park. All you got to do is call 911 and tell them your parents molested you and they go away. Like, South Park on the nose. Another reason. Hold on.
Slow down.
Give me a second.
Here, hold on. Hold on. Yes, you should. All the cool
another
kids
reason
are
why
doing it.
I left this in there is because I don't know exactly what this has to do with George Bush, but I was anxious. I wanted to see the connection. So this amounts to nothing more than a giant power transfer from us to them. The only way they can do this is by tricking us into thinking that we are so irresponsible that we cannot manage our own affairs and lives, and that the state is better suited to raise our children. Casey.
Yes.
You have a thought on that?
No.
See? Now that's where it's going to pick up when I say, "Casey, do you have anything you want to add?" And all that offensive shit's going to come out. So I just want to wrap this up by saying there are 33 sections to the United Nations inner emblem logo.
Hey, if you divide that by 3, what do you get?
11, which is a perfect number.
Really?
A master number. The first repeating number. The highest of the vibrations. Speaking of high vibrations.
Yo, where are your crystals at? I can't see them in the camera right here.
I have them aligned off camera.
How many do you have?
Enough to
11.
Yeah.
No, the answer was 11. Not enough.
No. Enough.
No. Which
I'm
is
building my chakras. Thank you.
Thank you.
I started at the sex chakra, and that one was really fun, so I just hung out there for a while. I'm fucking done. I don't have anything else. That shit, some of that shit was really stupid, but really, watch out for one world governments. They're making a push for it, dude. Like one world currencies, they're moving to like make the euro and the Amero, these dumb things.
and
like don't let a one world government happen. Independence and freedom for all. Viva la revolucion. We're gonna get pulled for that.
Yeah.
Watch. We're coming down, bud.
That's what gets you guys off.
Yeah. There's
What gets me off, pal?
The second I said, I was like, no, say more words. No, that's it. That's all I got.
Well, I don't think I can follow that. So we're just going to go ahead and end it right there. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Just look up the rest of Fred and Rose West on your own. And looks like Bigfoot and Robbie tie. There is no tiebreaker. Good night.
Perfect.
Goodbye.
All right. Well, let's get back to some murder. Okay, so like it seems like it hasn't been going great so far, right? Like this isn't a great story.
I think you're doing fine.
Well, I mean, I not for me personally. I know this is a wonderful. I meant like the things that have happened, the moments that have transpired, the things that have happened up to this point. Nothing is good. It hasn't been an easy life for the people we're talking about, but they haven't given themselves haven't done themselves any favors either. So it gets so much worse. Greg is going to have to hit the beginning and end of Careless Whisper a couple more times. You guys just let me know if you need to hear it. I really hate this story, and that's actually why I've avoided doing it for so long. I wasn't insanely familiar with it. I knew the gist of it, and then now doing it, I hate it so much more. So I'm glad it'll be done. But let's get into like the nitty-gritty of the rest of this story. November 1965 to January of 1967, 8 violent assaults take place in the area that Fred is living in and matched the physical description of the man who perpetrated the crime. The Murderous Minds documentary suggests that Fred was growing frustrated by his having to balance the two relationships of Rena and Anna. And so he would take it out on the women in the area. Like, not just raping them. These women are, like, disappeared.
Right.
Is this back where his plot of land is?
Mm-hmm. So Fred would also be later tied to the murder of a young boy who was 15 named Robin Holt, who died around this time, and it was initially considered a suicide. So this kid, Robin Holt, like went missing. He was missing for like 2 days, and he was found like in an abandoned barn near his home with like a bunch of pornography spread around him, and he had hung himself from the rafters. And it was deemed a suicide. Like nothing like it just seemed like maybe some weird teenage shit happened.
Jacked off and hung himself.
I was gonna say, sounds like he David Carradine.
Yeah, but I think this is a little 67. I don't know.
Oh, definitely before David Carradine.
Well, I know before David Carradine, but I'm saying is it before autoerotic asphyxiation is like a fairly known.
As long as people have been fucking, people have been choking while fucking.
Fair enough. It's pre-internet, is what I'm saying. You had to just think of it.
Yeah, you just got to come up with that.
Fred, so he's going to be tied to that way later down the line. Around this time, Anna becomes pregnant and was taking care of the kids once more. So she's taking care of the 2 kids, and she's pregnant. Fred did not want Rena finding out about Anna's pregnancy and may have done something irrational to make sure that stayed the case. So what do you think? He did the wire hanger again? No. Apparently Anna had been sending letters to her mother telling her how well she was doing, despite her actually doing quite the opposite. Anna, when she went missing, was never reported missing because her family had assumed she had made a better life for herself and started over. She was last seen July of 1967 and was approximately 7 months pregnant at this time. After this investigation settled down, Fred moved to Bishop's Cleeve, Gloucestershire, and nearby lived a girl named Rose Letts. At the time Fred would move to the area, she was 13 years old and lived with her veteran father, William Letts, and mother, Daisy. The youngest of 4, she was a little slower due to some serious issues with her mother and having electroshock therapy late into her pregnancies. So William Letts is also a fucking sociopath. Her mom was sick, so she did electroshock therapy into like her 9th month. So, question number 11, Rose.
There it is again.
At a young age is given a nickname. What was it? Was it A, Slow Rose, B, Backwards Rose, C, Dozy Rosie, or D, there wasn't actually a nickname.
Who gave her this nickname?
She's just given this nickname. I don't know, man.
Schoolyard chums.
Slow Rose, I believe it was her family because she was like a little kid. Slow Rose, Backwards Rose, Dozy Rosie, or there was no nickname. All right, Paul says Dozy Rosie. Robbie goes with the trick. And Bigfoot says Backwards Rose. Paul's going to get the points because the wonderful sounding and best possible of all the nicknames.
It really is, though.
Dozy Rosie. She's kind of sleepy like. You know what I'm saying?
Whole lot of
That's what I
doses.
imagine.
She's just a whole lot of just sleepy.
She got
Can
narcolepsy.
Can I say just how fucking adorable it is that the mom's name was Daisy and the daughter's name was Rose?
Yeah, it's pretty cute, dude.
Like, I
this
bet
family was
if
not
Rose
cute.
had a daughter, her name would be like Lily or some shit.
Yeah, we'll see. So she's gonna have some. So her mom is a crazy person, you know, in late 60s speak. I think that was also when a husband could just be like, yo, she's hysterical. You guys need to take her. And they're like, yeah, fair enough. So, and he's
Sound of the vibrator.
yeah.
Back in those days.
And William Letts was raping Dozy Rosie from the moment he possibly could. Like the second that she was physically able to do so, he was doing that. So Daisy and Bill were constantly fighting. Bill took an interest in Rose. Once the oldest daughter left home, Rose was known to begin to have sex with her brothers and other boys in the neighborhood. Her dad pretty much told her, like, hey, you're lucky. Like, a dad gets his daughter, and that's how it is. And you give it to anybody that wants it. So her brothers got it, and the boys in the neighborhood that wanted it got it. And this starts at like the age of 11 or 12. So her mother left at this time, and she began an incestuous relationship with her father permanently. But not too long after her mother returned, and her father then slept with everyone living under the roof. Rose was now 15 and a full-time waitress. Fred was living nearby with Rena and the children, and Anna had been out of the picture for quite some time. Missing.
Yeah, right.
It is said
She
that
made a better life for herself.
yeah, it is said that without Hannah, Fred and Rena got along just fine. Really weird how you just cut the girlfriend out and your relationship improves. Yeah, relationship works. So that's great conflict resolution. He's like, well, I'll just make her disappear. I think it's gonna get better over here. And
What the fuck kind of backwards ass hillbilly incestuous relationship? Like, what the actual fuck?
And this is two different families we're talking about here.
My guy, I've got a fucking notepad out over here, and I'm trying to like make connections. This shit looks worse than like my little conspiracy board. Like, I can't keep this shit straight.
Yeah, and you won't be able to because here we go. So Rose is now 15, full-time waitress. Fred living nearby with Rena only. Anna's gone. Fred never stopped his love for girls and would continue to chase them around at any time possible. One such girl was named Mary Bastham, and she was a waitress at a restaurant that Fred used to frequent. On January 6th, 1968, Mary is seen for the last time. A major hunt and investigation took place, but nothing was ever found. She is never officially connected to Fred, but it was probably him. Yeah, so fuck you. One night, while waiting for a bus, Rose was approached by an older man she thought was a homeless person. So this dude cruises up on Rose, and she's like, ugh, what the fuck? Ugh. Rose didn't know that Fred was married, but at this time, he and Rena were separated. So they kind of like, he schmoozes his way in. Fred, although limpy and kind of an ugly fuck at this point, was also known to be quite charming. So the
How old
people...
is she now?
Fred is, I want to say, 12 years older than her, who's 15 at this time. He's 27. She's 15 in that area.
God, I imagine he's done so much shit. I had just imagined him being like 40 at this point.
Yeah, he's been pretty much
he's
going at
packing
it
it
since
in
the
real
beginning.
tight.
Yeah. Nearly right away after getting together, Rose would quit her job and begin caring for Fred's children. Fred met Rose's parents, and they immediately disliked the older man who said that he owned land and a fleet of ice cream trucks. He owned no land. He worked for an ice cream place. So William Letts, the incestuous rapist of his daughter, is like, no, sir, I don't like this man. So just to give context to how piece of a shit Fred was.
Here, listen, I'm not a great guy, but I got a bad feeling about this one.
Again, we're just giving them the worst most inaccurate accents possible, but you just have to use your imagination, guys.
Look, I don't want to do offensive British accents.
Yeah, I mean, you have already. You're the one that's
No, I
already
haven't,
in it.
because those aren't going to survive.
How about me saying Greg did an offensive accent? So Rose was asked to forget about Fred, but could not do so. As such, she ran away to be with him. This is when her father called social services and had Rose taken away until she was 16. So she was just over 15 when she started. So for about a year, she was gone. Once she was out, she got back with Fred immediately and got pregnant. Her family told her that she needed to abort or they would disown her. At this time, she decided that she would go and live with Fred and have the baby. They rented a small place, and Rose looked after the children, who were only about 6 to 8 years younger than her. Besides the one that she was obviously pregnant with. The two that she had were very much close to age than her. October 7th, 1970, Rose gives birth to her first child, Heather Rose West. Rose was not ever checked in on by social services for being a young parent who was taking care of 3 children. Apparently, this is very common at the time. Like, if there was young parents, social services were checking in all the time on them just to make sure that they know what they're doing. They understand the situation.
Listen, people, garbage goes in the garbage can.
At one point, Fred was arrested and jailed for 6 months due to theft. At this time, Rose began to sadistically punish the children. Charmaine was taken to the hospital at one point with a large puncture wound from an unidentified object to her leg. Rose would often visit Fred in prison, and just a few days after one of these visits, Charmaine would go missing. June 15th, 1971, Rose told family and neighbors that Rena had come to take her child back to Scotland, and not a single person batted an eye to this. Only one of her 2 children that were left behind there, too, by the way. It is thought that more likely Rose lost her temper and killed Charmaine, the one she has always hated the most because it wasn't hers. June 24th, 1971, Fred is released from jail 9 days after Charmaine has gone missing, and it is said that one of the first tasks he is to take up when he gets home is getting rid of the body of Charmaine. Also not Fred's favorite, because it wasn't his either. So, remember, this is the one that he suggested the abortion take place. And they got, okay. So Charmaine had been left in the coal basement, and when Fred arrived 9 days later, he took her and buried her in a shallow grave. Question number 12, where did he bury his daughter? Was it A, behind a local factory, B, near a creek bed, C, out in the woods, or D, outside his back door?
Oh, I thought the plot of land would be that.
Looking out my back door.
I was going to do that too, but then I started thinking about that scene in The Big Lebowski where he's banging on the roof of the car and then he flicks the joint out the window and it bounces back in, lands on his lap.
All right, Paul says the crick, and Bigfoot and Robbie both say outside his back door. Well, the song was accurate because it was indeed one fucking step outside his back door. Like, took a step off the concrete flat to the dirt, 1.5 feet into the ground, throws his, I believe, 7-year-old daughter in the grave.
That's laziness.
The two were battling with this secret, and eventually Rose would leave, taking Heather with her. She had tried to go home, but her father turned her away, saying that she had made the decision to leave knowing the consequences, and they still stood. Fred turned up and convinced her to return before she had nowhere else to go, so she did. Not too long after this, Rena showed up for a visit, and as she was apt to do, because she did love her children, it just made life easier on everybody at this time that Fred and Rose had them, and Rena could be back home. So she did visit. I'm not saying she was a great parent, or any of these people are, but she turned up to see her kid a lot. And I am incorrect. I said earlier that she had 2 kids. This was her only kid. Fred has. Charmaine was. So when she realized that Charmaine was not with Fred and Rose, she traveled to Much Markle and talked to Fred's family to try to get information on her daughter's whereabouts. But as you might expect, this is a dead end. Fred's family defends him like she went to live with other parts of the family. I think that's the story they give her. When Rena becomes irate, Fred offers to take her to her daughter. Like, fine, fuck it, get in the car. They stop to have a drink, which she's like, okay, he's like making amends before he takes me to finally see my daughter. What he does instead is gets her shit-faced, and he doesn't drink. Before the night is over, Rena has been strangled in Fred's car, her body returned to his home with him. Once Fred arrives back to his home, he fully dismembers the body of Rena and takes her to a field in Campley, which was nearby Much Markle. It happened to be the same field her friend Anna was buried in. Similar to Anna as well, she was not missed and therefore not reported missing. The crime would be investigated, but not for several years. Rose was working as a prostitute full-time now out of their home, which Fred encouraged and often took full advantage of the live show. He had an area set up for her with holes drilled in the wall, and he just got his peep show on sometime. The two living girls were subjected to sexual acts from an early age and would be a regular occurrence in their life. On January 29th, 1972, Fred and Rose officially get married. These two bags of shit were pretty much made for each other, and together they are now in holy matrimony. Fred never mentions his first marriage during the ceremony. In fact, he gives a speech and refers to himself several times as a bachelor. Well, you killed her, right? Does it even count at this point? The two honeymooned near where Rose was from and may have possibly abducted a woman together that night. Once they returned, they decided that they needed more room for their little family and moved to 25 Cromwell Street, which was in a great area, but this particular unit had fallen into disrepair as it was described. So 25 Cromwell going to be kind of a famous spot for them. Something to note about 25 Cromwell is most of the buildings and spots next to it had been converted to small businesses and offices, so they were super nice, and they lived in the one shithole building and remaining home in the area. Any of the other ones that were left were like small studio style apartments and were rented by students, and they had like this sprawling 3-floor with a cellar and a garage, 3-bedroom like unit. It was a piece of shit, but they had the big unit on this block of buildings.
They had all the things that they
Does
needed.
anybody want to see my unit?
Hey, Greg, I have a note for you. So they were at 25 Cromwell, right? That's 2 plus
Right.
5 equals 7. And if you add 4 to that, it's 11.
There it is again.
Right? It's everywhere, guys.
So one of the first things they do...
I made a diagram. I'll show you later. It's right here, though.
The cellar that
show your work.
the cellar they have in the apartment, Fred almost immediately converts into what he calls a torture chamber. One of the first things they did to help out with the bills was take in lodgers that Rose would often have sex with for a little extra money. One of these clients brought his girlfriend Linda Goff, and the Wests befriended her, offering her a job as a nanny to the newly pregnant Rose. So there we go. Rose is pregnant again. In June of 1972, Rose gives birth again to baby Mae West. After this, Fred and Rose turned their attention to their 8-year-old daughter, Anne Marie. They would take her into the cellar, and they brainwashed her to believe that what she was experiencing was what all children got from their loving parents, and she was lucky to receive the sexual abuse and sex from her father, Fred. In November 1972, Fred and Rose pick up a hitchhiker while out on a country drive one day. She was a young woman named Caroline Owens. They really liked her and offered her a job as a nanny with them. They needed a new one. Rose took quite a liking to her very quickly and would not stop hitting on her. It didn't take long for Caroline to realize this was not a place for her. Between all of the advances from Rose and the open sexual activity, she planned quitting the job after only a month. Rose did not
I like
want
that she lasted a month though.
Yeah. Rose did not want to let Caroline get away, so she made a plan with Fred to kidnap her. One night during a drive home, Fred knocked Caroline out, and when she awoke, it was to being tied up and in the custody of the two. She was taken back to their home and repeatedly sexually assaulted. She was able to escape and report the incident to police. Fred and Rose nearly got off scot-free as Caroline would not face the trauma of seeing the two in court. What was their penalty since Caroline was unable to testify? Did they get 6 months probation, 1 week in jail, a 25-pound fine, or no punishment at all? So she didn't come and testify, but they still faced a trial. Did they get 6 months probation, 1 week in jail, 25-pound fine, or they didn't get a punishment?
I would really love to know the conversion rate of 25 pounds in that time, but
Trauma.
I don't even know where to look that up.
Google.
1973 pounds to dollars.
How?
Google. Google.
I'm in the United States.
Okay.
Google.uk.
Bigfoot says 6 months probation. Both Robbie and Paul say a 25-pound fine. The two learned a very valuable lesson with this super steep fine of 25 pounds. Robbie and Paul are going to score 250 points each. And if I'm not mistaken,
Robbie takes the lead, and Bigfoot and Paul are tied because he's keeping track in his head.
that is incorrect. Bigfoot and Paul are, I'm sorry, Robbie and Paul are tied for the lead at 1250 apiece. Bigfoot has 1,000. Didn't you just say that?
Nope.
What question are we on? Yeah.
We are 12 in, 13 in. Oh, yeah, that was right.
Subtract 2. What do you get?
Get 11. There it is again.
Shazam!
I sense a pattern.
I hope you're doing the math because I'm just chiming in. I'm matching your energy and chiming in. So
I'm gonna fuck it up at least once.
Okay, so we've got $12.50 for Robbie, $12.50 for Paul, $1,000 for Bigfoot. Close as shit. 21 questions total. Let's keep it going. 25-pound fine for torturing their 1 month employed.
I do want to know that conversion
nanny.
now.
Get your Google going.
I'm on it.
So the two learned their lesson and they reached out to Linda Goff, who is still being a nanny with them at this time, and offered her a live-in position. On April 19th, 1973, Linda told her parents that she got a new job and a place to live. She'd be back to visit sooner rather than later. And over the next few weeks, Linda would be sexually tortured in unimaginable ways by the pair. It's unclear what killed her. Only clear thing is that she did die. Fred then dismembered her body for his own pleasure, he would later say, keeping some parts. His garage had an inspection pit, so which is kind of cool. If you had a garage, that'd be cool to have an inspection pit in it, but Fred used it for dismembering women.
330. 327.14.
There you go. So when Linda's parents eventually came looking for her, after they had not heard from her in several weeks, they noted that Rose was wearing her slippers and that some of her clothing was out on the clothesline. Fred and Rose told Linda's parents that she had struck Roseanne, the child, and that she had been asked to leave. The next victim would be a young woman named Carol Ann Cooper. So I'm going to change young woman to would be a girl named Carol Ann Cooper, who is 15 years old. She was living in a children's home due to her mother's recent death and father's inability to handle his children. Same shit. I can't do this. Here you go. November 10th, 1973, she was at a bus stop on the way to her grandmother's house from the home that she lived in. The next time she would be seen would be as a skeleton 20 years later in the cellar of 25 Cromwell Street, the home of Fred and Rose West. Believed that Fred and Rose picked her up while out cruising at the bus stop, and, that's pretty much all we know. She's a skeleton. The next victim is going to be Lucy Partington. She was not from a lower class family, like a lot of the previous victims who were never even reported missing. On December 27th, 1973, she missed the bus home and was likely offered a ride from our good friends Fred and Rose, who may have also had their children with them. So think about this. Just the fact that Fred and Rose did a lot of cruising together is like, Ed Kemper used to pull up and like some women refused rides from him. Some women were like, man, it's the 70s. It's, like what? Everybody hitchhikes. And, he murdered the shit out of them. I don't remember what I said.
Ed Kemper.
Yeah. So if, Ed Kemper and hitchhiking, it was the 70s. People did it with him. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's mid 70s now. And Fred West is pulling up with his wife and kids. He's like, oh, yeah, we can give you a ride. No problem. And it's like, there are 4 kids in the car, a wife. Like, you would feel pretty safe to just jump in and get your ride into town.
Because I've heard of Fred and Rose West.
Yeah, but Lucy Partington was not so lucky. It is believed that she was taken back to their place, repeatedly sexually assaulted, and then dismembered by Fred with a small kitchen knife. It is believed that Fred cut himself doing so, and there are hospital records to show that on this very day, Fred was admitted to the hospital with a very deep cut in his hand. Let me say it like I'm British, because you can't say in the hospital. You just say Fred was admitted to hospital and had a very deep cut in his hand. There we go. I did that. So we good. We good. Everybody.
Going to army.
Going to army, mother. As Lucy was, again, not from a dysfunctional family or situation, she was reported missing quite fast, and an extensive search took place spanning both land and water. It became a very public case, which garnered a lot of attention. Fred and Rose may have been trying to lay low right now, between the fact that they had just started a high-profile murder investigation, and that Rose had just given birth to their 3rd child, Stephen West. In April 1974, a 21-year-old Swiss-born woman named Therese Siegenthaler was hitchhiking and was killed and dismembered and buried in the cellar of 25 Cromwell Street. November 14th, 1974, 15-year-old Shirley Hubbard also went missing, but had previously run from home and was a known troublemaker. She was last seen on a bus and would not be seen again until her body was uncovered at 25 Cromwell Street. Shirley was reported missing, but police seem to have believed that she just ran away once more. Fred and Rose were still taking in lodgers during this time and had one named Juanita Mott. She was down on her luck and a 15-year-old who had been staying with the Wests on and off for a few years. On April 12th, 1975, Juanita went to hang out in Gloucester and was hitchhiking. picked up by Fred and Rose West, whom she had known very well. So essentially they're driving, doing their cruise thing, and they're like, oh, it's Juanita. Like, yes.
That's convenient.
And Juanita, same shit, is like, oh, Fred and Rose. Like, hell yeah, I'll get my ride. I've lived with them before. So the following day, Juanita was supposed to show up because a friend was getting married and she was going to watch their kids. It's quick, like a small ceremony, like, you watch my kids for me. Juanita never shows up. So there's a little bit of suspicion, but she's never officially reported missing.
They
was
still a lot of people that don't get reported missing.
Yeah, it's what's the term? Less than dead. You go after the people that are known runaways and the people that are sex workers and the people that are known to, the sex workers like make the rounds. We work here 3 months, then we're in Alaska 3 months, we're in Seattle 3 months, or we're in LA 3 months. That was the whole Robert Hansen thing. Like he just kept picking them off because they were just doing that. Like the sex workers do a rotation of 3 months and new ones come in and the old ones move to, and the police know that and the Wests know that and the Predators know that, and that's how it goes. So Juanita was gagged and she was found in the cellar and is believed to have died by a blow to the head. Unfortunately, her family never reported her missing. Of all the people that suffered from the Wests, their daughter Anne Marie may have gotten it the worst out of anyone who survived. There are multiple women who survived the Wests' attack who never came forward out of fear of retribution or embarrassment from the Wests. So they attacked several women that they didn't kill, too. So just keep that in mind. Going back to Anne Marie, Rose had a huge problem with her because she was Fred's daughter by another woman. However, later, Anne would say that she would do anything for Fred and Rose, mostly Fred. The pair knew this and took advantage of it as much as they could. Fred first raped Anne Marie at the age of 8 and forced her into prostitution at the age of 12.
It's just that this is the 70s, man.
It's not.
It's not like this is like 1931 and times are fucking tough. Like, this is the 70s, man. Like, can't just be hoeing kids. Can't be hoeing kids anytime.
I mean, I know you have the outline, but it's not even. We're not.
I'm not even reading ahead anymore. I'm just like sitting here, just
waiting for Careless
taking
Whisper.
it all.
I see why you didn't want to do this episode. I noticed we're all real silent. We're just like, ugh.
Yeah. So
yeah, like it got fucking heavy in here, man.
For Anne Marie, this was just all normal life, as she had been doing these things and seeing these things since she was a baby. Like the lodgers walked around naked. Rose would just fuck wherever. Fred and Rose would just fuck wherever. Like, these kids were brought up knowing nothing else but like open, gross fucking sex just always happening in front of them. And then by the time, they even like understand that they have private parts, their parents are diddling them. And
one of the things I'd like to point out is that we've talked like three generations of people now. We talked about Fred's parents. We've talked about
so
Fred.
tell me how this
Fred's
works.
Kids. Well, hold on. What we have not mentioned is anybody's level of education. There has not been one single talk about education.
So these
Fred-
kids,
What were these
Fred
children
dropped out.
doing?
they go to school. They do go to school.
Yeah, he said that he had quit school at, what was it,
15?
15?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, like the
Fred.
kids, like, what?
They go to school.
They go to school.
Yeah, but this is normal to them. And we'll talk about it a little later. Essentially, Fred and Rose are like, you don't talk about home. Like, that's not something you do. Like, that's not etiquette. That's not proper. We don't talk about what we do.
That's not proper.
Yeah. So,
That's the line.
speaking of generations, tell me how you count this, because very similar to Fred and him seeing his father be an ultimate piece of shit. At 15, Anne Marie was pregnant with her father's child.
All right.
Yep. It is later found that the child was aborted, possibly by Fred himself. This poor kid has lost 2 half-siblings and her mom and is enduring sexual abuse on a nearly daily basis from her father and mother, and was just forced to have an abortion done by her father. By now,
Get
Fred's...
that, George Michael.
So, Anne Marie's pregnant with the father's child. By now, Fred actually owns 25 Cromwell Street. Like, he's lived there so long, he's made an agreement with the landlord. Like, let me just buy it. Like, come on. So Fred owns it, and the first thing he does is converts it to where the family can live. The upstairs was for lodgers. Downstairs is for the bedroom. The children's bedroom was in the cellar where he had committed multiple murders at this point, and torture, and 5 bodies were buried underneath him. This also meant that Fred and Rose could abuse the children and not be heard because they were down in a cellar and away from the lodgers would be on the top floor, Fred and Rose on the ground floor, the kids in the cellar. This also meant Rose had her very own area where she could complete her sex work and Fred could watch her film with ease. When they were discovered, many different pornographic tapes were found. Question number 14.
I don't want to.
They found tapes of all types of pornography, but one. Which one of these was not found in the collection of Fred and Rose West? Was it A, child pornography, B, elderly pornography, C, necrophilia, or D, bestiality? Okay, Paul says they did not find any bestiality. Robbie says they did not find any child porn. Bigfoot says they did not find any elderly pornography. All wonderful guesses, all incorrect. The only thing they did not find was necrophilia. There was tons of child porn, tons of elderly pornography, as many of the lodgers they brought in were quite elderly men. And bestiality was something that Fred also learned back on the farm. His father was very proud of the fact that he had learned to fuck a sheep and taught Fred how to fuck a sheep. And Fred was like, well, if my dad does it, I do it. So we didn't really go there because I knew this question was coming. But Fred also very into having sex with animals.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah.
This guy's got to have some STDs.
Who, Greg?
Oh, no.
Who are we talking about?
No, he's good. I saw his labs.
No, I don't think I mentioned it, but later we'll find like they've got a lot of kids. The kids all have STDs.
Yeah.
Every single one of these poor kids. So,
What are you gonna get from a sheep though? Like, what do you?
Later they're gonna find tapes of all different types.
Stuff
a woman. Later, a woman named Shirley Robinson, who had been working as a sex worker and lodging with Fred and Rose. She was also in a sexual relationship with both of them. Rose was pregnant yet again, but not with Fred's child. It was that of a client from sex work. However, at this time, Shirley is also pregnant, but it is with Fred's kid. These people live like fucking animals.
How's that network going over there on your notepad? Keeping up with this?
He gave up.
I had to sharpen my pencil, and
Then he got behind.
my dog ate it.
So Rose is fine with the fact that Fred is going to have a baby with another woman. But Rose also knows that she's going to have another mixed race baby because that was her clientele mostly. December 9th, 1977, the baby is clearly not Caucasian like Rose had, quote, hoped for. And I think the fact that Shirley was due to have a Caucasian baby really bothered Rose. So she was like, I didn't get a white baby. Like, why is Shirley going to get a white baby? And that's how these fucking people lived. Rose's baby was named Tara. Shirley's due date was in 1978. Question number 15. What month and day was Shirley due to have her baby? So just give me a date. Closest to the answer gets 250 points. If you can nail it somehow, it's worth 1,000.
What about that date did you just say? You said a date and what?
It is in 1978. Just one of the days in 1978. What day is her baby due?
This is for you, Greg.
Why? What I do to deserve this?
Well, no. My guess is for you.
He's looking at both of ours.
Okay. Robbie says Christmas. Bigfoot says June 28th. And Paul says 11/11. You hear that? You hear that? Paul said 11/11.
Sorry, I'm still trying to find that
I want to change my answer now.
Seinfeld thing.
Get the appropriate
Okay.
response.
Oh, there it is. Sorry.
No.
Bigfoot's going to get the points because March 18th, 1998 was the due date.
I was going to guess 420. I didn't.
You would have won.
I tried
You
to
would have
appease the
taken the lead.
wrong host.
Okay. Bigfoot 1250. Robbie 1250. Paul 1250. Oh shit, boys. Okay. So December 9th, 1977, the baby was clearly not Caucasian. And question number 15. Shirley's not gonna make it. to the due date. She was strangled sometime earlier than the due date with a near fully formed baby inside her. She is one of the first to be killed without being sexually assaulted. With the cellar now too full of bodies to allow any more, Fred digs a hole in the backyard. They brutally dismember Shirley, scalp her, and remove her unborn child, who was found in the grave next to his mother instead of inside. Fred and Rose actually attempted to claim maternity benefits in Shirley's name during this time, too. They didn't get them, but Shirley is never reported missing, and she is completely out of the way. They could go on to have another child. November 17th, 1978, Rose has yet another child. Another daughter named Louise. Fred's name is on the birth certificate, but it is believed that another client of Rose was the father, but this time the baby at least looked white enough for them.
They're all a bunch of old dudes.
How do they know if other than like when the baby's born, it's not a white baby? Like, how are they knowing? Are they doing like a DNA test or something? I don't feel like that was a thing yet.
I really don't think so, but yeah, I think that they're not. Like, when it comes out like an Asian, Fred's like, shit, that one's not mine.
Right.
And when it doesn't, he's like, yep, I'll sign the birth certificate. So I think that's the...
I think it's also, I think the mom just kind of knows. Like, I've watched enough Maury to know that the mom is just like, I know. And he's the dad.
That child don't look like me.
So in May of 1979,
Racist.
Rose's father, William Letts, passes away. Good riddance. He is said to have possibly been one of Rose's clients during her entire time as a sex worker. He was buried in an unmarked grave. Goes to show you what a wonderful person he was in life, that he gets zero respect in death.
He was one of her clients, though?
Allison Chambers went to a school for young, troubled girls all around the age of 15, and Allison was not happy in life, was just looking for someone to take her in. So Fred and Rose could tell that what she needed, and they played right into it, just bringing her in, and spent 2 years grooming her. They would convince her to come and live with them after she had turned 17. She wrote a letter to her mother saying that where she would be living and that the family she would be taken care of had 5 children. She would be killed after not too long and dismembered and buried in the backyard alongside all of the other women. Alice had friends who would come around to see her, and Rose always told them. Question number 16. Where did Rose tell Allison's friends that she had gone? A, she had just gone one day. B, she was working on the West Farm. C, she had taken a job the next town over, or D, that they had fired her. She was just gone, working on the West's farm, taking a job the next town over, or they had fired her.
A long time.
All right. Both Robbie and Paul say that she was working on the West farm. Bigfoot says that they had fired her. Rose told Allison's friends that she was working on the West's farm, which at this time did not actually exist. They no longer own any plot of land. They don't have a farm. Robbie and Paul are going to take possession of the lead at 1,500. Bigfoot still at 1,250, within striking distance. That was the lie until some of Allison's friends requested where this farm was so that they can go and visit their friend. Rose then said how Allison had left to live with another family member of hers. While a police report was filed, it was never followed up on. In 1980, Anne Marie is able to escape the home and go live with friends. However, since we last spoke about it, Rose has yet another child.
Good Lord.
The oldest at home, now 10, Heather, begins to be the center of Fred's attention. Just as he told Anne, pretty much whoever the young or the oldest is at home, that's his. Just as he told Anne Marie, he tells Heather that it's a father's right to have sex with his daughter and that she should feel so lucky. Fred and Rose were both also physically abusing Heather at this time. But from 82 to 83, Rose gives birth to 2 more children, Rosemary Jr. and Lucy Anna. None of which are Fred's, one of which are the same as the earlier children. So she has another Asian baby and another one of Fred's kids.
Did they say Rosemary Jr.?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
They're running out of names.
Yeah.
The kids can call you Roju.
With the family starting to grow and the work piling up, the 3 oldest children seemed to come in charge of the house's day-to-day duties: Heather, May, and Tara. Heather began drinking and smoking at 11 years old to deal with the stress that she was dealing with at home. She was also very wary of all men and any attention from men. She ran away but came back home. Stephen did the same. The Wests never looked for their children, though. They were like, they'll be back. And when they get back, they'll get a beating. And that's how it went. Like, kids would go for a couple days. They come back. They get their fucking ass kicked. And they would stay. It's hard out there. Don't leave, stupid idiots. Although the kids were implicitly told to never mention their home life, Heather had shared a little bit of her home life to some friends at school. Somehow, this makes its way back to Fred and Rose. Heather knows how angry they are and asks Anne Marie, her older sister, who has now gotten away and is married and living life on her own, if she could live with her. However, Heather was not allowed to go live with Anne Marie. I couldn't figure out if Anne Marie said no or Fred and Rose, like, it's not fucking happening, and just didn't let it happen. Either way, she didn't get to go do that.
So
Anne Marie wasn't like, yo, I'm going to come get you.
Not that I can. It doesn't seem that way.
But yeah, like, I guess my question was just,
Anne Marie's now like in her early 20s.
so she you said she escaped it and moved away. Like, I guess I want to know the story of that. You know what I mean?
She turned old enough, met a dude, and moved out. Like, it wasn't really so much escaped it as she left at some point. She grew out of it.
Oh, she aged out.
Yeah, that's more like.
But is she like doing the damn thing, and like was she like living was she doing this?
I think
just her own franchise now, or is she?
I think she's gone living a pretty normal life away from the West family at this point. That's why Heather wants to go live with her to get the
fucking
fuck out
good
of
for
this.
her, man.
Anne Marie, however, throughout pretty much everything, is going to stay very, very, very loyal to Fred.
Ah,
that's what I was going to say. She's probably at the very least just terrified of him and the wrath.
Right. So, Heather was not allowed to go live with Anne Marie. Sometime in the next few months, she would be killed by Fred and Rose. It's their fucking daughter. She was strangled, and Fred admitted to it, although most people involved in the case believe that it was Fred who killed her firstborn child. I'm sorry, it was Rose who killed her firstborn child. Fred just took the blame to cover up for her. Fred then dismembered the body of his child, put it into trash bags, and had Stephen help him dig a hole in the backyard for which he said a new fish pond would be. The fish pond never came to be, but Stephen would later have to live with the fact that he helped dig his sister's grave. When the other children became curious about where their eldest sister had gone, Fred and Rose told them that she was a counselor at a camp a few hours away and had left that very day. The next day, the hole was filled in and a deck built on top of it later. Stephen asked, like, what the fuck? I thought it was a fish pond. And Fred was like, oh, I changed my mind. Like,
it was easier to dig 8 small holes than 1 large hole.
So May is now the new target of Fred, but was constantly spurning his advances. She would get a boyfriend who moved in, and she would later say that this protected her from being raped by her father. Although Fred was inappropriate with May, he was never able to sexually assault her, but it would later become apparent that at the age of 5, she had been raped by Fred's brother, John.
Jesus Christ.
Eventually, at some
They're
point...
all just, like, through and through, just dyed in the wool pieces of fucking shit.
Yeah. Eventually, at some point, Fred and Rose separated, and she moved out and began dating. She was supposedly finally sick of all the sex that Fred was demanding and wanted it to be violent each time. She did, however, leave her children behind with Fred. August 6th of 1992, 25 Cromwell Street is raided by police. Fred was arrested for trying to rape his 13-year-old daughter, Louise, who seems to have also told someone at school. The children were all taken, and Rose was arrested as well, and Fred would be charged. Question number 17. Fred would be charged with rape and assault, battery, burglary, or sodomy. 2 charges. One's rape. The other is assault, battery, burglary, sodomy. You guys got it?
Yeah, but I don't like it.
I don't think anybody likes anything.
Robbie says...
Fred seemed to like it.
Robbie says burglary. Bigfoot says sodomy. And as does Paul. Robbie's going to capture the lead because it is rape and burglary. Fred never really stops his stealing ways. He's always into the fucking petty shit. And that's what Fred does. So Robbie is now at 1750. Bigfoot at 1250. And Paul at 1500. Anybody's game. Okay. I say it, but it's true. Look, you guys are all within one question of one another. Okay, so burglary, because even though he never stopped his ways. Rose was charged with encouraging a sexual act. After Rose,
Encouraging a sexual act.
Yeah.
So, like, if you were getting it on with someone and I was standing there going like, yeah, that's
I think it's
awesome.
more
Keep
like
doing it like that.
with a child.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
thought it was just like if you're being
you would
really
just be a good
encouraging,
homie at
okay.
that point. Yeah. So after Rose is out, thank you, Greg. After Rose is out, she visits Fred a lot, having seemed to do a 180. So they were separated. Remember when this raid happens? But she's like, "Nah, I'm gonna get in there."
She saw what her life was like without him. She was like, nope.
Yep.
Turned 360 degrees and walked away.
Perhaps it was due to the fact, and ran right into Fred. Perhaps it was due to the fact that she attempted suicide while incarcerated, and obviously had flipped. Some thought that this was Rose trying to keep Fred quiet. In court, they'll put in not guilty pleas, and the children refused to testify against their parents, so they were found not guilty.
Well, because like if you're like, yeah, that all happened, and the court's like, nah, send him home.
Yeah.
You're fucked.
Yeah, exactly.
Add another body to that cellar.
Right. I mean, like, and, clearly your parents don't give a shit. Like,
Yeah.
Cellar's full. Sorry, buddy. They're using the backyard now, or the garden, as they call
Where are
it.
the kids living
you're
now?
you're about to be a gazebo.
So obviously the kids are not allowed to go right back home with Fred and Rose, but Fred and Rose never even tried to get them back, only going home and clearing out their rooms and throwing away their possessions. They were like, oh, hell yeah, like that was easy. They then began talking about having more children, but Rose, at the birth of her last child, had her tubes tied and would need to have this reversed. So she did. However, she would never get pregnant again. The entire time they were being questioned about all of the initial things that got their children taken away, authorities were concerned over their lack of emotion shown for not knowing where Heather was.
She got the old snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap.
Yes, exactly. So, they come in, they raid this place, and they're like, wait, you have another kid. Where's Heather? And they're like,
Who?
We don't know. Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, we don't even, I think she ran away or something. And social services like, why the fuck are they, like, not concerned? Why is there no missing person reported? Like, what the fuck is happening here?
Lady, you got the wrong file.
Yeah. So she, the main detective at this time was a woman named Hazel Savage. So Hazel Savage was the one that originally followed Rena from Gloucester to Scotland for her shoplifting. She had been feeling bad about, she had a bad feeling about all of the things that were going on at 25 Cromwell. And she remembered Fred West. So that's kind of a huge turning point. She just so happened to be a part. She wasn't even like in the raid, but she knew about it and worked for this department and knew Fred West and knew the situation with Rena. And just like, she kind of understood and was like, nah, we need to like look into this. So she really had a bad feeling about Heather's whereabouts. There were several things that concerned people around the case, but the Wests hadn't really been into the life of crime since killing their eldest daughter in 1986. So they've been flying low and looking good for some time, and now they've made it through a raid. So all of their neighbors around this time were like, they're the friendliest motherfuckers. Like, they come out and say hello. They greet everybody in the neighborhood knows them.
Do you think the doctors actually like untied her tubes?
Or they were like, just don't do it.
Yeah. Do you think they were just like, all right, we're gonna slice her open, and then I don't know, like you got a Game Boy.
I don't feel like you need to put anything in there.
Well, no. It's like we're just to make it look like we're doing something for a minute, and then after I beat like 2 or 3 levels on this Donkey Kong, we'll sew her back up.
Do Kirby pinball.
There you go.
Okay.
See, because like I gotta feel like knowing like her story and what she was charged for, and just all the factors going into it, I gotta feel like they were like, you know what, we're gonna make an executive decision.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, she's only in like her mid-30s at this point too, so it seems plausible that she would.
What's the kid count at?
I want to say she has shit out 7. And they had
Pooped them out? They definitely did something
They
wrong
would have
with
had a
surgery.
total of 9 had the 2 that were murdered not been murdered.
See, like that, there's that, and then like between that and like all the violent sex, like I gotta imagine that they were like she seems to be what's the word I'm looking for? Potent, fertile.
Fertile. Yeah, a little fertile myrtle action.
Yeah.
So
like
check.
She doesn't have a problem getting pregnant. So that's what that just made me think like she hasn't had a problem before. And then I was just thinking maybe they were like.
Well, you're always the one thinking the conspiracy, man. So that makes perfect sense.
I'm sure everything I just said will show up on Our Bad Women's Anatomy.
So, the beginning of the end comes in like a fairly innocuous situation where, like, okay, the kids are in a foster home at this point because West are like, I don't give a fuck. A social worker is just chilling. Like, he's not investigating. He's just hanging out. And one of the West kids is like talking to another kid. And he's like, hey, my sister Heather, she's dead. She's buried under the deck in the backyard or the garden. You know, they call it the garden. So that's the whole thing. They buried the hole. There's not going to be a pond. They put a deck over it. So social worker randomly hears this. One of the West children say, no, Heather's not gone. She's dead. She's under the deck. So on February 24th, 1994, police came with a search warrant for the garden or backyard, and the 2 were taken away and questioned. Fred pretty quickly admits to the murder of Heather and shows them where to dig. After the confession, Rose is allowed to go home. They continue to tear up the backyard and find multiple bodies. As Fred begins to admit to more murders, Rose continued to deny everything. Rose and the children are questioned yet again, yet released, but no longer allowed to stay at 25 Cromwell Street. The police give them a safe house to stay in, but unbeknownst to Rose, the safe house had been bugged. She said enough incriminating things to get her arrested 2 months after Fred for the murder of Linda Gahn initially. Question number 18. How many murders is Fred going to be charged with in the end? So total, this is like when they're coming to trial, innocent or guilty, Fred, this is how many murders we're charging you with. This isn't how many he was proven guilty of, how many he's charged with.
That was a good move on his part to throw himself on that grenade, though.
He did.
To be like, you got to keep the dynasty alive. It's too late for me. You're still young.
What's funny is it kind of becomes like a weird rom-com after this where Fred's just always trying to get Rose back. And she's like, nah.
Nah, you're into weird stuff.
Okay. Bigfoot said 7. Paul said 7. And Robbie says 22. Bigfoot and Paul are going to get 250 points each with their guess because when it is all said and done, Fred is going to be attached to 12 murders.
I'm like, write down 13. I'm like, no, I'm going.
I almost wrote 11, but I didn't get the right enthusiasm last time.
So Paul's at 1750, Bigfoot at 1500, Robbie at 1750. Holy shit, we might have an artistic challenge. Who knows?
God, I hope not. I'd rather sing again.
No, don't worry. I'm awful too. As long as he's not a part of it, we're fine.
Question number 19.
Oh, fuck. That was fast.
How many, when it's all said and done, will Rose be charged with?
For murder?
Mm-hmm.
Muck duck.
Fred got 12. And when it's all said and done, Rose is also going to be charged with murder in some way, shape, or form. Maybe.
Of the 12?
Robbie's like 20.
Maybe it's more. That's what I was going to say.
Okay.
When it's all said and done, Rose is going to be charged, let's just say, with at least one murder. How many? I'll tell you, it's not a trick question. It's not 0. So it's at least 1. How many? Fred's got 12. Did she break his record?
I don't know, guys. He said 1 a couple of times.
All right. Paul says 3. Robbie says 6. Bigfoot said 7 once more. And is going to make this a 3-way tie at 1750 because when it's all said and done, Rose is going to be charged with 10 murders.
Damn.
So 1750s across the board at question number. What did I miss?
I don't know. We just finished 19. allegedly.
Oh, yeah, I know what I did. I just dropped the scores down and didn't fill in everybody else's. So it is 1750 across at 19. Okay.
None of us would know if he was lying right there and just skipped a question or some shit.
No, it's all right. I mean, it's just I didn't put your X's in for the last
see?
one. I just had it up. Yep. So Rose would be charged with 10 murders. There are 2 opportunities from the time of their arrest that they are able to see one another. Fred is completely shunned by Rose both of those times. This completely breaks Fred, and a lot of people said he was doing everything he could to protect her and writing her letters every day that she did not reply to. He was a wealth of information and as cooperative as I think anyone could have ever asked him to be. He was also known to be heard weeping in his cell at night, not over the ones that he had murdered or the problems he was facing in his near future, but over his lost love, Rose. He was being held in Winson Green Prison on remand, so he was given a few small luxuries. So he's not charged right now. He's being held before trial, so he's on remand, so he's not like on death row or whatever, whatever it is over there, but he's got a few luxuries. So he's awarded some luxuries. Of these 4 things, he's not given one of them. So did he have a radio, extra yard time, pillowcases, or curtains for his window? He didn't have one of these. He was given radio, extra yard time, pillowcases, or curtains for his window.
I still imagine like not an actual window, just like bars and like an open hole. It's probably wrong, right?
I mean, I have not been in the cell.
I hope it's pillowcases and then they didn't give him a pillow. They're just like,
Ball this up, bitch.
Yeah. Open these up, stick them together, and make a blanket.
Okay, Bigfoot said that they did not give him curtains. Paul and Robbie both said that they did not give him extra yard time. Those 2 dudes are taking a lead of 2,000 into the final question because, yeah, they gave him a radio, they gave him the nice clean pillowcases, and he actually had some curtains for his windows. 2,000 for Robbie, 1,750 for Bigfoot, 2,000 for Paul. Final question down the line, January 1st.
I want this to be a 3-way tie.
You shut your mouth when you talk to us.
The devil's 3-way.
And here's the thing. Someone scores points because it is a closest 250.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I'll say it again.
Got this, Paul. Wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul's going to guess 11, and he's going to get it right one.
So,
That'd be a
okay.
conspiracy.
January 1st, 1995, Fred eats breakfast, does some exercise, then writes Rose a note saying, quote, "Happy New Year, darling. All my love forever and ever." He got his lunch for the day, goes back to his cell to eat it, and instead of doing so, commits suicide by forming his sheets into a rope and hanging himself. He was
Were
hanging.
they sheets or were they extra pillowcases?
He was hanging for near an hour before the guards realized and cut him down. His cell was filled with love letters to Rose. So he had carved something too, like the murder of Gloucester and his. I'm gonna get killed over these fucking names. And like he was proud of his crimes. He just didn't want to have to fucking live up to him, and he thought he was gonna die a legend. I think. I mean, he fucking.
He's on a
unfortunately,
podcast.
like yeah. So. He does.
He's made
Mixed
it.
feelings.
So the thing is that like he was in this. He's in remand, so there's a lot of trust given to these prisoners. He was able to take his lunch and like go back to his cell and eat like by himself. So it said that when the guards found him, they cut him down. They tried CPR. They didn't know how long he had been hanging there. His neck did not break, so he suffered for sure. He was up there hanging and dying real good. There was a lot of people that were very upset that Fred would not have to face trial and was allowed such freedoms to be able to kill himself. Hazel Savage, that badass detective who kind of broke the thing wide open with a memory of Fred and his behavior and tenacity. Hazel was removed from the case when she was in contact with an agent to write a story about capturing them during the time this case is going on. So we did, I couldn't remember, but recently we did a story where this exact same shit was going on. The lead detective is out like doing the media circuit and the trial's not even over yet. It's fucking crazy. So Hazel Savage, although dope, although helpful in this situation, gets removed ultimately from the case due to her trying to make some money off it. However, now everything is going to fall on Rose. She seemed to show no emotion when she finds out about Fred's death. Another fun thing during this time, which is slightly topical, is the theory that says Fred didn't kill himself, that he was killed by guards, or there's a conspiracy around Fred's death in a prison
and then they
cell.
switched his body, they moved him out, and now he's living somewhere in the hills with an assumed identity. I've seen this before. Where have I seen this?
I think it was called Face Off. They were
No.
about
This was in the news recently. Who did that happen to?
So they were about to face another tough task, as no cemetery wanted to allow Fred to be buried within their walls. So Fred was kept in a hospital freezer for over 3 months before a crematorium finally decided they would do it for him on March 23rd, 1995. So they were like, fuck it, we'll just cremate him. Like, you can't bury him here, but you got to get rid of the body. We get it. You will cremate him here, and you guys, we won't want anything to do with it after that. We'll give you
the ashes.
We'll give you the cardboard box with his ashes. Yeah. So during the funeral, the older West children all showed up, including Anne Marie, who had not been invited. A fight broke out between she and Stephen about who would take the ashes of Fred.
Of course it would, because they're classy people.
Yep. Stephen had plans to take it back and spread it around near his mother's grave in Much Markle. Anne Marie disagreed and would end up leaving with the ashes. October 3rd, 1995, Rose continues to protest her innocence in court, and her psychological state begins to deteriorate. She was very sure that the trial would be quick to prove in her innocence. The main piece of evidence that came about was testimony from Anne Marie. It was harrowing testimony that also brought a trial about for her Uncle John, Fred's brother, who, just like his brother, John hung himself when the trial came to be. So remember we said Uncle John raped her when she was 8 or whatever? Well, it brought a trial against him. I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, Anne Marie also wrote a book. November 21st, 1995, the judge finds her guilty of the first 3 murders. They take a 1-day recess to go over the next 7 charges. The following day, Rose West is charged with these as well. She is given a life sentence for each of the 10 murders and put away in a women's prison. Question number the last. 250 points for the closest, 500 points if you nail it. In what year did Rose West die? 1995.
Anne Marie's book is called Out of the Shadows. Fred West's daughter tells her harrowing story of survival, and it came out in 1995.
There you go. So right around this time.
He's been real quiet.
He has been. I was actually just thinking about what he's tinkering with over there.
He's writing a paragraph.
Bigfoot says 2017. Robbie says the year 2000. Paul goes with the still alive stab. Paul's motto when he's on the show is that they're always still alive.
Well, when I don't guess still alive, guess what? Still alive.
Well, guess what?
They're dead. Yeah, fucker.
Paul, you just won episode 101 of the Serial Chillers podcast, because to this very day, Rose West sits in prison, very much alive.
I don't know if he's lying or not. Do you guys?
No, congratulations, Paul.
Oh, high five. Hey, I beat you fuckers. Fuck you. I'm number 2. Number 2.
So Paul has been given the rank for all of season 5. Great. I was really pulling for you guys.
I almost put still
Of
alive, and I was like,
It's almost always still
number
alive.
2 fan. So
So no one told you Paul was gonna be this
gay.
Can we?
That stays.
There was technical difficulties, and we're gonna have to re-record this episode. Sans Paul.
oh, sorry, man.
I'm just kidding, dude.
So yeah, victory lap, man. Go for it.
Again, no drinking and I win? Dude.
I like it. It's the future. Keep not drinking.
It's the future.
So we put a prize out there. I gotta say, I was pulling for you guys. I didn't know what this would do to Paul's head if he won.
Well, now you know.
I'm excited to see what happens. So
I love
Recount?
that
No
I won.
recount. We're not gonna recount.
No. Hold on, let me see this.
this is the official book, and so it is. I would never give Paul a victory. Let's be real here.
With the machete, you gotta knight him.
I do have to knight him. Like I said, we're gonna do that off air, but we are gonna film it. We are gonna knight Paul with a machete.
I love that.
Yeah. So Paul is, for all of season 5, the number 2 guest on the Serial Chillers podcast. Congratulations for that.
Suck it, bitches.
Present it.
Yes, 2 episodes in a row. I love it. Hand out again. So congratulations, Paul.
Thank you.
Sorry, guys. Anything you guys would like to throw out there here at the end, though?
Robbie, you look fucking crushed, dude.
Flabbergasted. Yes, flabbergasted is what I would.
Like it's the look on the face of somebody who was like who missed the last second shot.
Because this is the shit I have to see right
not
now.
that you missed the shot, but somebody on your team missed the shot. You just look heartbroken, and that you're just like,
Man,
And
yeah.
you were standing wide open to take the shot, too.
Yeah.
I'm kind of bummed because like I legitimately lost to Paul 2 times now, but then I thought about it and I was like, oh, one of them was not legitimate. He had already listened and been a part of that episode.
Well, we adjusted points accordingly
So
partway through.
did we?
You got none of those right, if I remember correctly.
Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth.
Hella Greg. What do you want to
What?
throw out here at the end of this season premiere for season 5, episode 101 of the Serial Chillers podcast?
be on the lookout for the number 11.
Yep.
Or I don't know, dude.
Go
I don't
back and
buy all
listen
that
to the
shit.
11th episode.
Whoa.
That shit. Whoa. That shit doesn't make any sense to me. But
It's silly and fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
be on the lookout for a one world government coming to a world near you.
And if it hasn't already, be on the lookout for hella conspiracies.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I was gonna say. That whole suicide in the cell thing. That was there's a podcast for that. There's actually a show for that now. I mean, we always joke about there being a show for that. Now there's a show for that, and it's on Patreon at $5.
Yeah, so if you are a $5 donor to the Patreon page, you just go to patreon.com/serialchillerspodcast.
In fact, if you can hear this, there is one for you to go watch right now.
There you go. Boom. So
going
if you
to
can
look.
hear this, you can't shut up.
Not you.
But I hear it.
Here's the thing too, Paul. You can't talk about your win until this happens. You can't spoil it for people.
I would never.
right.
I will only
This is the
text the
fucking
people
guy who
in this
won?
room.
This is the guy that won.
You looking
We
at
gotta
him.
get. I know we gotta
Man.
break down the rules. He's new to winning.
I don't choose the winner. I just make the questions.
And I answered them more correctly.
I hate him.
See,
I hate him.
I stand by my statement right now.
I still stand by the fact that I'm like the co-host. So
Yeah, it's pretty
That's
truthful. It's pretty
interesting, too.
truthful.
Hey, I got a theme song today, so it's a good day. It's a
Yeah,
good day.
we'll take it as good day.
Yeah.
All around victory for everybody except everybody involved in the stories.
Yeah, listen, I had fun. Fuck Fred and Rose West super hard.
Yepers.
Congratulations, Paul.
Thank you. I
Make
love you.
sure everybody checks out BIGGFOOT Designs because Bigfoot's got some badass shit. I love his rings. The knife looks cool. I can't wait until you're kind of like into that because I really fucking because I asked you about a cleaver not too long ago and I can't wait until you're able to put me together.
Somebody was asking about where they could get more Bigfoot on Facebook the other day, and I believe your competitor Paul directed them to BigfootDesigns.com.
ooh,
I found it. I think
I like
you
that.
actually linked it like 30 seconds before I did.
Yeah,
'cause I was
it was like
looking
30
and just
seconds
linked
before
it.
you did.
Yeah.
Still,
thanks guys.
We pushed him away. I told him to buy a hat.
ILY, both.
ILY2. Robbie, anything?
No, I mean I have an Instagram. I have a SoundCloud. Check me out on SoundCloud.
Spits hot fire.
No, Instagram is Robbie McFly, like Marty McFly, but Robbie McFly. Check me out on there.
Yeah, do that. Well, shit. Go a little over 3 hours in. We'll see how long this episode ends up being. Like 18 minutes.
Usable material, 30 minutes, 45 tops.
Shortest episode in 3 seasons.
Shorter than
So,
the motor breaks.
congratulations, Paul. Thank you, Robbie. Thank you, Bigfoot. Thank you, Hella Greg. And thank you, everybody, for listening to 101 episodes of the Serial Chillers podcast. And remember, don't talk to strangers.
Season 5, bitches! Go listen to the Hella Conspiracies. We're back! Season 5! Season 5! Yeah, next season in season 6 it's going to be $6.
Why don't we make a t-shirt with it?
This has been another presentation from Super Network.